A sharp sting from the punch sent cold sweat pricking at Gajil's brow. He yanked back the arm that had turned into an iron pillar and rolled several times to put distance between himself and Chess. Once he confirmed who the man was and that he was out of immediate danger, he straightened up and sneered. "Ha! So a real heavyweight shows up." He was surprised Chess had appeared here, and the man's oppressive presence was leagues above the 3 cannon fodder he'd just been dealing with. Still, Gajil kept an arrogant, almost excited posture. These were S-class mages from Fairy Tale, folks he'd wanted to test himself against ever since he learned what true strength looked like. He was a dragon slayer, hot-headed and itching for a fight just like Natsu. If Jose hadn't kept reminding him to stick to the plan, he probably would have rushed to attack Chess's little building on the spot. "That guy's Chess! Fairy Tale's Chess!" The saber-toothed lackeys alongside him were far less composed. Their eyes were wide with fear, and every instinct screamed retreat. For a third-rate guild like Sabretooth, a mage like Chess was basically a legend. "Pathetic," Gajil spat. "It's just Chess and you're shaking like that?" His face went hard as he backhanded one of the grunts with an iron dragon club and sent him flying. Phantom Lord's atmosphere encouraged mercilessness, even toward their own, so there was no mercy for saber-tooth cannon fodder. Chess narrowed his eyes and stepped closer to the knocked-out man, scanning the emblem burned into the fellow's chest by the faint moonlight. Sabretooth, how had they gotten mixed up with Phantom Lord? Ches wondered. The deviation from the original timeline probably started when he'd clobbered G-Mon at the last Guildmaster's meeting. Before he could think further, Gajil burst forward with a wild laugh, unable to hold back any longer. "Heh heh heh. Since you ran out to die, let's start with you, Chess." Gajil leaped, cyan magic circle flaring, and his right arm whirred into a serrated high-speed greatsword. Iron Dragon Sword! A cold glare of magic rained down from above, slicing toward Chess. The slash hit with a thunderous boom, shattering the street into fragments and dust. 2 figures sprang out of the settling debris. Chess landed steadily, one arm around Levy's waist as if holding a child. "Chess, Jet!" Troy rushed up, breathless and worried about Jet's sudden disappearance. "It's fine," Chess said calmly. "I swapped places with him using card magic. He's with Natsu and Urza now." He set Livy down gently and explained, and the 2 who'd been alarmed let out a long, shaky sigh. "You 2 hang back. I'll deal with this scrap metal," Chess said, looking up. Gajil stood on the ruined street with his head tilted back and his cheeks puffed. Magic power swirled around him, condensing toward the cyan magic circle at his mouth. When it peaked, he spread his arms and let loose all of it at once. Iron dragons, roar! A brutal blast of black iron sand burst forward. Stones and paving slabs tore free and pulverized into dust where it passed. Levy and Troy froze, rigid with fear. Chess, however, drew a steady breath. He walked into the first blast and clenched the sealed one's right arm, the bronze limb jingling with broken chain. "Magnolia, this isn't the place for an outsider to cause destruction," he said, and with a simple, powerful punch, he met the Iron Dragon's roar. Boom. The punch generated a wind and shock so strong it shattered the roar itself, sending iron sand scattering in every direction. Gajil staggered back, stunned, eyes locked on Chess as he slowly withdrew his fist. Intelligence had flagged Chess as a duelist whose specialty was card magic, though he'd shown solid physical ability too. But to defeat his roar with a single punch, Gajil couldn't fathom it. "What the?" he barked. Realization of the gap in their strength broke something in him. The ace of Phantom Lord felt his confidence crack, and rage boiled up. Cyan magic erupted chaotically about him. The magic circle under his feet amplified the effect, and his skin began to ironize, scales forming in a lattice like those of an iron dragon. His aura grew heavy and oppressive. "Someone so strong is only worth trampling," he snarled, powering himself up and beckoning with his scaled arm. "Come on, Fairy Tale, let's fight to the death." Chess sighed, a faint disappointment in it. He had intended to put up a fierce fight, perhaps draw a new card, but from the way Gajil's magic read now, he was at about Natsu's level, maybe slightly above. That wouldn't be enough to force a card. "You're not worth the trouble right now, Gajil." Seeing Chess's indifferent expression snapped Gajil's temper. "I'm Phantom Lord's Iron Dragon Slayer Mage," he roared, slamming his foot into the ground and launching himself forward, turning into a steel afterimage. A holy light cleaved the gloom. 3 brilliant swords of light descended faster than he could move and circled him, each humming with binding power. Gajiel tried to push through, his aura spiking as he fought the unseen restraints. "Damn it, why won't I move?" he howled. No matter how he tore at the bindings, he couldn't break free. The gap in their magic power was too vast. When you'd only felt real oppression from 2 people before, your foster father Metallicana and Jose Porla, Phantom Lord's guild master, who'd been one of the 10 wizard saints, this pressure was the kind that left you little more than prey. Ches walked over across the rubble, as if in a garden stroll. To Gajiel, he'd become a monster with blood-red eyes. "It's not that I look down on you," Ches said quietly. "You're just too weak right now to bother with." He stopped, and then, with the sealed one's right arm, he struck. A muffled explosion rolled through the street as a deep, cracked crater blew open beneath Gajiel. Iron fragments skittered everywhere. Gajiel was slammed back out of his enhanced state, thrown full force into the pit. He lay spread-eagled, twitched twice, and then his neck went limp. He had passed out on the spot. Chapter 82. Joseph was furious and launched an all-out war. As Gajiel fell, several figures appeared at the corner of the street. Jet, his face taut with worry, rushed over with Urza, Natsu, and the others. "What on earth?" Gray murmured, staring at the ruined street and the unconscious Iron Dragon Slayer. "I didn't expect Phantom Lord would send someone this dangerous." Urza's expression hardened when she recognized him, anger barely restrained. Iron Dragon Slayer, Gajiel Red Fox. She couldn't imagine what would have happened to Shadowgear if Chess hadn't taken precautions. "Levy, Troy, are you all right?" she asked. Lucy and the Black Magician Girl were already checking Levy and Troy, who had only a few scrapes. "Thanks to Chess, Luchan, and Black Magician Girl, we weren't hurt," Levy said with a smile, taking Lucy's hand and glancing back at Gajiel lying in the crater. "Damn it, I was still a step too late." Chess finished the fight. Once he'd confirmed his friends were safe, Natsu finally relaxed enough to complain. He was still full of pent-up rage. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. He stormed over, grabbed Gajiel's collar, and shook him hard. "Hey, wake up! Aren't you the Iron Dragon Slayer? Get up and fight me, you bastard!" Happy spread his hands helplessly. "Natsu, he can't fight anymore." While Natsu made a scene, Chess had already found the Sabretooth member who'd been flung by Gajiel. The man lay among the rubble, trying to pretend he was dead. When Chess discovered him, the thug instantly dropped to his knees and began begging for mercy. Urza stepped forward from behind. Chess knocked him out with a single chop, ripped away the ragged cloth on the man's chest, and revealed a clear Sabretooth emblem. "Strange. A guild emblem I've never seen before." Urza frowned. She hadn't expected the attack on Levy and the others to involve a guild she didn't recognize. "It's Sabretooth," Chess said. "A small guild. No real reputation. Why would they be working with Phantom Lord? Maybe it's because of that meeting with the other guildmasters. After I beat their guildmaster, they held a grudge," Chess added. "You beat the Sabretooth guildmaster?" Urza's eyes widened. Having taken part in the lullaby subjugation, she'd heard nothing about that. "Let's take this one back to see the guildmaster and get the details," Chess said. "I want to know the full story." Chess produced a blank card and used it to seal the man away. He still didn't understand everything, but given Jiamin's image as a brawny simpleton, he guessed Sabretooth had likely been used as a pawn by the cunning Jose. Sabretooth wouldn't change the outcome of the larger conflict much, but since 2 guilds were involved, it was better to let the old man decide. "What about Gajiel?" Urza asked, pointing to the unconscious dragon slayer that Natsu kept manhandling. Chess grinned. Instead of taking Gajiel back to the guild, he had a better plan. With Lucy being the heir to the Heartfilia Consortium, a clash between Fairy Tail and Phantom Lord was inevitable if Jose kept pushing. Endless restraint would only encourage him. Better to act first and give Phantom Lord something they couldn't ignore. Besides, if Jose had been making petty provocations to force Fairy Tail's hand, why not use his own tactics against him, use Gajiel in a way he'd never expect? "Urza, if I remember correctly, Phantom Lord's largest branch is in Oak City, northeast of Magnolia, right?" Chess asked. "That's right," Urza began, and then, realizing what Chess was getting at, she cut in. "Chess, what are you planning?" Once Lucy, Gray, and the others gathered, Chess explained his plan. Reactions varied. "Ah! That sounds perfect," Natsu laughed. "Aye!" Happy cheered. "You're ruthless, Chess," Gray chuckled. "Chess, wouldn't that be a bit—" Lucy's big eyes filled with sympathy. Urza, who always valued rules, shook her head and sighed. After a moment's thought, she agreed. She was as furious as Natsu, but had been holding back on the guildmaster's orders. Tonight's attack had crossed her line. It was time to send a message. They split into two teams. Chess, Natsu, and Gray took the unconscious Gajeel and flew through the night on a citadel-winged dragon, heading for Oak City. Urza, Lucy, Levy, and the others took the sealed saber-toothed thug to report to Makarov. The next morning in Oak City's central square, people gathered beneath the distinctive local tower, pointing and whispering. Phantom Lord's four elements pushed through the crowd at once, drawn by the commotion, and froze at the sight before them. On the tower, their guild's ace, Gajeel, had been stripped and hung by a hexagram spell. He was exposed and humiliated. One cheek was daubed with a crooked Phantom Lord emblem, the other with a middle finger painted in bright color. "That's Gajeel?" Todomaru, the fire element, blurted. "Don't worry, the rain will wash it off soon," a pale-faced Juvia murmured, holding an umbrella over her head. "This is an insult to dignity," the earth element muttered, examining the scene with an odd twist. "Did Gajeel lose the fight? Ah, the humiliation of a comrade." Arya, the wind element, cried dramatically. Unlike Natsu's boundless fury when Levy and the others had been hung up, the four elements reacted in their own peculiar ways, but showed little emotional volatility. A heavy tread sounded from behind them. Jose appeared, his face a terrifying mask of cold fury, surrounded by Phantom Lord's dark magic. What consumed him wasn't Gajeel's condition so much as the blow this would strike to Phantom Lord's reputation. The strongest guild's top magician displayed in public like that, how would anyone look at them now? "He actually had the nerve to do this to us," Jose snarled. The painted middle finger and the murmurs of the townspeople stung him deeply. Killing intent burned behind his eyes. If Makarov prized his guild members like children, Jose prized the prestige of being the strongest guild above all else. "Arya, contact G-Mon. Wake the six-legged walker," he ordered, his voice cold as iron. Dark purple magic surged through the square, sweeping over the gathered crowd. "Everyone, prepare yourselves. Get ready to fight Fairy Tale. Total war." Chapter 83. Listing Comments. The recommendation didn't go through. I've contacted the editor, and it should be available tomorrow. While we wait, let's take the opportunity to answer some of the questions everyone cares about most. 1. Main storyline. Remember the domain name of the site where this was first posted. The book's pacing was decided from the start, a mix of daily life, original plot elements, and adaptations of the original story. You can see that in the previous chapters. The daily life parts are just relaxed, funny, and a little fan-servicey. As for the original content, it will mainly expand on some settings from the source material, like the Irmo Relic Island incident at the beginning. How to describe the original plot? In terms of plot design, I haven't seen many complaints, only that the climax at the end might not have been handled perfectly. Mainly that was because I realized as I kept writing that the opening arc had gotten a bit too long, so I had to cut some parts. I'll learn from that. About adapting the original story, it won't be a case of simply adding a protagonist and then following the original beat for beat. For small episodes that don't need much change, for example, Lullaby, the focus will be on the protagonist's perspective, and Natsu's role will be mentioned briefly. For bigger arcs like Karuna Island, I'll put in more effort. Some overlap with the original is unavoidable, but it won't be much, and I'll integrate the protagonist into those events. Looking at current word count and the original's progress, you can probably guess the overall length. 2. Power levels. A lot of readers saw the protagonist start out at S-Class and concluded the story wouldn't go far. If you re-examine Fairy Tale's plot, you'll find that many later bosses are impossible to face without S-Class strength. Initially, I thought about starting the protagonist at A-Class, doing a few small plots, and then having Lucy join, but in hindsight that felt unnecessary. Fairy Tale without Lucy always seems a bit off. If anyone still thinks the protagonist is too strong and that it breaks balance, here's a tier list to clarify positions. T0, Forbidden Gods, Ankh-Serum, the god of time, the god of sky, etc. Yes, the outline includes a plot about fighting gods. After all, Yugi Muto's deck happens to contain several gods. T1, Black Dragon, White Zerif. T2, Igneel, the 5 dragon gods, the Imperial Twin Walls. T3, the 12 shields, ordinary dragons. T4, the 4 heavenly kings of Ishal, average dark guild masters. T5, Saint 10. T6, S-class. Framed this way, the protagonist's position becomes clear. Starting somewhere between S-class and the Saint 10 is the most reasonable spot. The biggest criticism of Fairy Tail was the power level collapse late in the story, so I'll make adjustments later to avoid mindless escalation. P.S. The Sky Dragon everyone is excited about won't appear yet. Its prestige is too high to be used on early bosses. However, Sky Dragon Godslayer magic will appear soon, hand-cast lightning attacks, etc., and fusion will come shortly after Phantom Lord is defeated. Number 3. Female lead. The overall outline is basically written, but I'm not very confident writing romance scenes. Frankly, whether a female lead forms often depends more on reader response than the author. If the romance is written well and resonates with readers, it'll happen naturally. If not, it'll feel stiff. That said, this book will definitely have a female lead. Attentive readers can already spot hints earlier. The main theme is still card players' hot-blooded battles, but a little shy romance will be mixed in to balance things. One thing I can promise, the romance arc won't be overly long. That will depend on feedback, and there won't be a brainless harem. At most, it will become a dual female lead situation. Before, updates. Tomorrow night at 8, I will post 5 chapters. If I finish writing them, I'll upload all 5 at once. If not, I might leave 2 for later. I'm not the fastest writer. After that, I plan to update 6,000, 8,000 words daily. I won't be doing extra updates tied to single subscriptions, monthly votes, or reward incentives for now. If I write well, people will naturally want to vote. More votes lead to better visibility, and that gives the author more motivation to update. That's the bond between us. If conditions allow, I'd still appreciate if everyone could at least make an initial subscription to improve the book's numbers. Compared to One Piece or Naruto fanfiction, Fairy Tail fanfiction is much harder to promote. If some of you big supporters want to help, you can also turn on automatic subscriptions. Thank you very much. And thank you to the readers who have been quietly voting, supporting, and putting up with the occasional plot hole to keep following the story. I wish you all great fortune. 5. PY Promotional Exchange. None. Chapter 84. High Spirits. Bring it on, Magnolia. Even though morning had come, the air was still thick with a suffocating, oppressive tension, heavier than the night before. The streets that were normally busy and bright lay empty. To guard against Phantom Lord, who could strike at any moment, Mira, Urza, Lucy, Livy, and the others had evacuated the town's residents. Fairy Tail's guild hall sat in ruin. Gajeel's giant iron pillar had been removed, and the worst of the damage patched up, but the repairs were barely enough to keep the building standing. The structure trembled under the lightest wind, and the whole place felt as if a storm might tear it down at any moment. Inside the hall, nearly every member of Fairy Tail had gathered. Only a few were missing. The room was packed. On the broken bar, Makarov stood wrapped in his Saint 10 cape, Chess, Mira, and Urza, 3 S-class mages at his side. His voice cut through the hush. Insults, interference with requests, damaging the guild, those are small things, he said. Then his expression hardened. But if Phantom Lord and Sabretooth have the nerve to attack our people, don't expect a clean end to this. No father wants to see his children hurt, he went on, voice iron. If Phantom Lord pushes for war, no, even if they could have let this go, they won't. They must remember the cost of attacking Fairy Tail. Last night, Urza and the others had reported that Shadow Gear had been nearly annihilated. Makarov, a man who had long borne slights and diplomatic pressure, finally snapped. His children had been attacked, and that was something he could not tolerate. The council's mediation couldn't calm the fury building now. It would change things. Without much thought, Makarov had approved Chess's plan. He'd even interrogated the Sabretooth member Urza had brought back. Petrified under Makarov's gaze, the man revealed everything he knew. The alliance between Phantom Lord and Sabretooth, the deliberate attack meant to provoke Fairy Tail, Arya's earlier wind element ambush inside the guild, Every conspiracy spilled out. Once the plot was laid bare, mobilization was inevitable. A roar rose from the gathered members, answering Makarov's call with raw fighting spirit. They weren't the type to swallow anger. Their home had been pierced. Outrage had been simmering for a long time, and now it exploded. "You're going to shout the guild down," Lucy muttered, watching wood chips rain around her. "Aye, Lucy, that doesn't matter." Happy darted down. "Come on, Phantom Lord. Bring it on. I'm fired up." Natsu cracked his knuckles and flared hot flames from his hands. "I get why you're all raring to go, but the building won't hold much longer." Lucy almost scolded Natsu into stopping, but she found herself instead looking at the faces around her, full of fierce excitement. Buildings are just buildings, she thought. As long as we're together, even a ruin is still our guild. Loki appeared beside her, glancing up at the battered rafters. "These guys have been keeping it in for too long. Let them let it out." Lucy blinked in mild surprise. "Loki, you—" "Ah, no closer," Loki said, and fled from her good-naturedly before hiding behind Elfman, who was loudly proclaiming his manliness. Lucy smiled despite herself. She closed her eyes for a moment and let the heated atmosphere wash over her. This wasn't the time to dampen spirits. She opened her eyes and joined the shout. "Bring down Phantom Lord!" Makarov turned from his children to Mira. "Are Gildarts, Laxus, and Mistogan still out of reach?" He didn't necessarily need them to return at once, but a war with Phantom Lord would have wide consequences. They should be warned. "We reached Laxus," Mira answered, "but—" Her voice trailed. Even the usually gentle Mira Jane sounded irritated thinking of Laxus's response. Makarov's brow rose. "Perhaps you should speak to him yourself." Mira stepped behind the bar and triggered the communication lacrima in the corner. The crystal connected quickly, and Laxus, headphones spiking from his head, appeared on the surface. The Thunder God tribe stood beside him. The background was a lonely mountain forest. "Laxus, where are you?" Makarov asked, voice heavy. "On a job," Laxus replied, stretching his arms. "Old man, you want me to come back because Mira nagged you?" He waved a hand. "I won't get involved in boring petty stuff. You, Chess, and the rest of you, defend your broken guild yourselves." If it had been about proving strength, Laxus would have charged in. But defending what he saw as weaklings, that didn't interest him. He wanted Makarov to see that the weak had no place. Maybe then the guild would get stronger. Makarov growled, "Do you know what you're saying, Laxus?" Playing the rebel, Laxus simply said, "I'll finish my request," and cut the connection. Makarov's anger flared. Then Biska, who had been scouting on the rooftop, burst in, breathless. "Guildmaster!" 600 meters from the main gate, a team of mages we've never seen in Magnolia. The leader is a bulky man with a huge string of prayer beads around his neck and white eyes. The boisterous crowd fell into sudden silence. Fists tightened, eyes blazed. "So he's finally here." "Geeman," someone murmured. Makarov's face darkened. He crushed the wooden staff he held in his hand, leapt from the bar, and led the crowd out of the guild. Chess followed close behind, just then thinking bitterly about Geeman. They'd been used as pawns, and now he'd shown up right after Makarov finished speaking to Laxus. Wasn't that asking for trouble? Chapter 85, Phantom Lord Appears, Magic Convergent Cannon. On the town's main road, smoke and dust billowed as Phantom Lord's mages marched in grim formation, leaving destruction in their wake. Geeman walked at the very front, his face tight with resolve. A fierce, oppressive violet magic aura radiated from him, so overwhelming that residents in the buildings on either side hurriedly shut their doors and windows to avoid trouble. Sabretooth had not come out in full force this time. Only its elite troops followed Geeman. Minerva and the other children were not among them, not because Geeman had a sudden conscience about involving kids in the war with Fairy Tail, but because they were too weak. Bringing them would only bring shame to Sabretooth. For Geeman, this was a crucial battle to burnish his reputation. Even if he'd been used by Jose, there was no turning back now. Under Phantom Lord's pressure, retreat would mean ruin. Setting aside his personal grudge with Chess, greater risk meant greater reward. If he could annihilate Fairy Tail in one stroke, Geeman could rise in fame across Fiore and shed the reputation of a third-rate guildmaster. From that angle, Geeman and Jose were cut from the same cloth, except Jose was cunning while Geeman was thick-headed. At Fairy Tail's entrance, Newbie Lucy watched the approaching Phantom Lord troops and felt a flutter of panic. Since joining the guild, she'd never been part of such a large conflict. Nerves were only natural. There's nothing to be afraid of. Those guys aren't in the same league as Chess or Urza, let alone the old man, Natsu said, stepping forward to stand before her and smile reassuringly. Everyone else put on brave faces. War-hungry members, like Elfman, rubbed their fists, eager for the guildmaster's command to charge. Chess, Mira, and Urza were unusually relaxed. They didn't seem inclined to move. They simply watched as Sabretooth's troops halted a few meters away. "We meet again, Guildmaster Makarov," Jiamun said, lowering his crossed arms, his voice heavy. Makarov gave the intruders a casual glance and smiled. "Did you come to Magnolia just to find this old man? Are you here to help rebuild the guild, Jiamun?" As a senior figure in Fiore's magic community, Makarov was tolerant of young people and always willing to give them a chance to mend their ways. If Jiamun had seen through Josei's manipulation and chosen to retreat, Makarov might have let the matter rest. But Jiamun's expression hardened. "Don't be foolish," he replied. "I haven't come to reminisce, and I certainly won't help you rebuild your guild. I've come to declare war on Fairy Tail." The words barely left his mouth when golden light flashed and magic circles spun in the air. A giant, fist-shaped construct of compressed magic descended from the sky, aimed straight at Sabretooth's formation. Jiamun's face blanched as he hurriedly mustered his power to repel it. The fist crashed down with an earth-shaking boom. The street quaked, dust and rubble exploded in every direction, and when the roar finally died, the scene in the crater was shocking. Sabretooth's troops lay scattered and broken, and Jiamun himself was on the ground, foaming at the mouth and unconscious like a defeated clown. "I wanted to do that back at the Guildmaster's meeting," Makarov said coolly as he withdrew his arm, a faint snort of contempt in his voice. He didn't bother to look at Jiamun any longer. When it came to the children, his temper was unforgiving. Fairy Tail erupted into cheers. As expected of the Guildmaster. "That old man really did it himself. I wanted to burn that beard to ashes," they shouted in admiration and glee. Lucy still stared in stunned disbelief. She knew Makarov was powerful, but one magic blow defeating a rival guildmaster and scattering so many elite mages felt almost unreal. "Just one punch. He took out a guildmaster and so many elites," she murmured. "Lucy, our guildmaster is one of the 10 wizard saints," Happy called proudly, waving a paw. Only now did the weight of Urza's words from last night sink in. When a 10 wizard saint fights, heaven and earth themselves can be shaken. Makarov's expression, however, shifted from triumph to seriousness. He looked out toward the lake behind the guild and warned, "Don't let your guard down. This is only the beginning." The appearance of Sabretooth in Magnolia was no isolated provocation. It meant that Jose had truly decided on all-out war between Phantom Lord and Fairy Tail. A far-off rumble confirmed Makarov's fear. The earth trembled as if something enormous was moving. On the lake, through thinning clouds, a massive structure loomed. A towering, moving fortress bore Phantom Lord's flag, and 6 gigantic mechanical legs stepped across the water, each stride sending waves crashing against the shore and destabilizing the small island it stood on. "That's Phantom Lord's headquarters, the moving fortress, the 6-legged walker," Mira said. At the center of the 6-legged behemoth, a window opened with the grind of gears and a massive cannon barrel slid out. Dense magic energy coalesced within its dark muzzle, forming a whirling black and purple vortex. "Initiate the attack. Let's give Fairy Tail a proper greeting," Jose ordered from the walker's command room, expressionless. "Magic convergent cannon Jupiter, fire." "Does that bastard Jose want to destroy Magnolia?" Makarov roared, a golden halo flaring on his fingertip as he readied to intercept the shot. "Guildmaster, let me handle it," someone nearby shouted, but Urza was quicker. She reached out and restrained him, not from any desire to show off, but because she wanted Makarov to conserve his magic. Given the scope of the battle, that was the best move she could make for the guild's overall survival. Chapter 86, Lucy Hartfilia. The words had barely left Jose's mouth when Urza shifted into her strongest defensive armor, adamantine armor, charged to the front of the crowd, and erected an impossibly solid magic circle. The magic beam cannon had already broken the lake's surface and bore down on the circle with irresistible force. Boom! When the two met, a terrifying shockwave blew out like a storm, tearing up the shoreline and vaporizing the lake water. So heavy, Urza's scarlet hair whipped around her face as she gritted her teeth and planted the massive white shield. She barely held against the initial eruption of Jupiter's energy, but the continuous output pushed her back. Cracks spidered across the adamantine armor. Just as her body and armor were about to give out, a strong hand pressed on her shoulder and stopped her backward momentum. "I can't let you steal all the spotlight, Urza," Ches said with a smile. "Ches, you," Urza began, but the momentum still carried her forward. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the oppressive pressure from Jupiter vanished. Urza looked down and saw the magic circle beneath her feet rotating slowly. She looked up to find two oddly shaped cylinders suspended on either side of the field, one swallowing Jupiter like a bottomless pit, the other's mouth showing the same dark pull vortex as the cannon. Simply blocking it would be a waste. Good things should be returned to where they came from, Ches said, waving his hand. "Trap card, magic cylinder, activate." With a clap and a tremor, the captured beam fired back. The energy from the other cylinder blasted straight at the cannon barrel at the center of Phantom Lord's castle. Boom! The cannon's special outer barrel and its internal energy core shattered on the spot, spewing black smoke. Phantom Lord's pride, the magic beam cannon Jupiter, was utterly destroyed. "Oh, that's Ches for you. He turned Jupiter's power back on them," one guildmate shouted. "Who told them to fire the first shot? Jose must be furious right now." Urza held out through that whole thing. "She's amazing." Relief and cheers erupted from the fairy tale members. Makarov cracked a small smile and let out a satisfied breath. These kids of his, he almost felt proud. On the shattered, smoking shore, Ches's chest rose and fell. His breathing was a little rapid. Even with Urza taking some of the force, Jupiter was a mountain-shattering weapon. Bouncing it back had drained a great deal of his magic. Why had he used the magic cylinder instead of the area effect Holy Shield, Mirror Force, which also reflects attacks? There were two reasons. First, Jupiter's power was too enormous. Any slight miscalculation could have leveled the guild or the town. Second, Phantom Lord's elite soldiers, and even the four elements, were an opportunity for Fairy Tale's members to grow. Ches didn't want to rob his friends of that chance, even though wiping out most of Phantom Lord's forces in one strike would have been spectacular. This time, unlike the original story, Makarov was in his prime, and Mira had unsealed her demon form early. They were practically unbeatable. Let Natsu, Gray, and the others have their fight and get stronger. "Ches, are you okay?" Urza asked, back in her normal armor now, worry in her voice. "That was Jupiter." "Haha, aren't we two sides of the same coin?" Ches said, rubbing a hand at his head. Urza sighed, speechless. Click-clack, the sound of mechanical gears cut across the relieved noise. From the top level of Phantom Lord's six-legged walker castle, the heavy steel wall slowly split open. Jose and the four elements stepped onto a high platform, framed by the mist and smoke. "So you finally decided to show yourself, Jose," Makarov said, moving to stand between Ches, Urza, and the rest. He met Jose's gaze across the distance. "It's been years since we last met, hasn't it, Mr. Makalov?" Jose's face was dark with anger after Jupiter's destruction. He glared at Ches like poisonous fire. "You've taken in a remarkably capable mage." It was Ches who had spoiled his perfect plan. Ches who had interrupted Gajeel and hung him from the clock tower, humiliating Phantom Lord, and it was Ches who destroyed Jupiter. Jose seethed. Jupiter was supposed to either weaken Makarov or take out a top fairy tale combatant. Instead, the shot had not only failed, it had annihilated his own energy core. "Cut the theatrics," Makarov said. "Do you intend to make war on us? If you kneel and admit your mistake, I'll let this pass." "Ha!" Jose barked, forcing his kill urge down and spreading his arms in a contemptuous gesture. "You want me to admit defeat? Is it not your own allies who knocked our Phantom Lord down?" He sneered. Then his tone hardened. His cold gaze slid through the crowd and fixed on Lucy. "There is one condition under which I might consider withdrawing." He pronounced the name so casually that it landed like a blow. "Hand over Lucy Hartfilia." Makarov and the others stared, stunned. No one expected Jose to demand a handover, and certainly not of a newcomer who'd just joined the guild. Lucy herself trembled. At the sound of Heartfilia, she felt something click in her chest. She lowered her head and clenched her fists at her sides. "Oh, you didn't know?" Jose said, reading their faces and letting a bitter, jealous fire burn in his eyes. Lucy Heartfilia is the young lady of the Heartfilia Consortium. At his words, waves of shock ran through Fairy Tale. Even Mira covered her mouth, dumbfounded. The Heartfilia Consortium was a colossus in Fior. Railways, transportation hubs, major construction projects. Nothing in Lucy's usual behavior at the guild suggested that kind of pedigree. No wonder everyone was taken aback. Lucy's quiet, everyday self had never hinted at the power and influence wrapped up in her name. Chapter 87, Guildmaster, rest easy and go back to the guild for tea. Whether she's the Heartfilia Consortium's daughter or a national princess, Lucy is still just an optimistic, positive girl. One of ours. You want to hand her over to Phantom Lord? What kind of pipe dream is that? Makarov stepped forward. Even without releasing his magic power, his sharp gaze sent a ripple of fear through the Phantom Lord ranks. Jose didn't seem fazed. No. This isn't my private decision, he said haughtily. Bringing Lucy Heartfilia back is a request personally issued to Phantom Lord by her biological father, Jude Heartfilia. We're only following orders. A request from Lucy's father? Makarov frowned. Old man, don't be fooled by that purple-haired scoundrel. Lucy's father wouldn't do something like that. Natsu, recovered and trembling with fury, clenched his fire-wreathed fist. His face was thunderous. The anger in his eyes was barely contained. Gray, Happy, and the others mirrored his stance. Even Urza's temper flared. She demanded Makarov order them into battle immediately. No matter what, even if they died, they would never let Lucy fall into Phantom Lord's hands. Damn Phantom Lord. If you want to fight, then fight. Don't use Lucy as an excuse. Lucy is a member of Fairy Tale. If you want her, you will have to step over my corpse. Screw you. Only trash would sell out their comrades like that. The guildmates didn't care about titles or consortiums. They shouted curses at the lake castle of Phantom Lord and planted themselves tightly around Lucy. The force and unanimity of their protection made Lucy's guilt press down on her even harder. She hadn't expected this conflict to rise from the identity she despised. If she hadn't been born into that cold home, if she hadn't had that family name, Fairy Tale might never have been attacked like this. Levy and the others wouldn't have been singled out for torture. It was all her fault. Shaken by guilt, gratitude for her friend's blind trust, and fear of returning to that frosty, loveless home, Lucy began to tremble. Tears filled her eyes and wet her collar. Everyone. She took a step forward, voice shaking. She'd grown used to her friends. She couldn't imagine leaving the guild and being alone again. And yet, if going back with Phantom Lord could stop a full-scale war and let everyone return to peaceful days, she would do it without hesitation. She hadn't finished speaking when someone stepped in front of her. Through her blurred vision, she recognized the silhouette. Chess. Lucy, he said firmly, now is not the time to say things that will lower everyone's morale. But everything started because of me. It's not Lucy's fault, Mira interrupted, having noticed the exchange. She stepped up beside Lucy. Phantom Lord already had a grudge against us. The war would have happened anyway. If you insist on going home, at least let Chess go with you when it's over, Mira added, smiling gently. Mira's warm smile broke Lucy open completely. Tears streamed down her face. Mira, Chess, I don't want to go back to that cold, heartless home. I want to stay in the guild. Mira opened her arms and embraced her. Then stay. You don't have to go anywhere. No one can take you away. Lucy sobbed even harder, held by those who had cursed Phantom Lord moments before, but were now smiling through relief. When she finally calmed enough to pull back, Chess spoke up. Lucy, do you remember the promise I made to you that night? Lucy blinked, still wiping at her cheeks. Chess couldn't keep a straight face in this moment. Natsu barked a laugh nearby. If you're going to be polite now, Gray will give your butt a proper cooling off. Natsu shouted, half joking. Lucy couldn't help a small retort. Her voice was thin but steadier. Don't say such lewd things with a serious face. Being able to speak back meant she was mostly all right. Her gaze moved from the cheering guildmates to the villainous face of Jose on the castle battlements. Lucy clenched her fists and made her choice. She would rely completely on Chess, on her comrades, on the guild. Chess, please help us drive those bastards out of Magnolia, she cried. No problem. I accept this request on behalf of Fairy Tale, Chess grinned. He turned to the crowd. Hey, everyone heard that. Lucy wants us to. Protect our guildmates and take down that damn Phantom Lord. Oh! The cheers rose, morale peaking like never before. Makarov, who had been watching Lucy the whole time, finally relaxed. But when he looked at Jose, the old man's relief vanished, and fierce determination replaced it. Sorry, Jose. We've also received a request. If you think you can, come and try. Old man, you're stubborn. You brought this on yourself, Jose snarled. He waved to the packed Phantom Lord magicians on the castle walls. The troops responded with eerie cries and leapt down like rabid dogs. With Arya's wind magic to propel them, they swooped toward the shore, accompanied by a host of purple, chilling spirits. The Phantom Lord force was massive and imposing. Fairy Tale was outnumbered, but they showed no fear. Natsu, Gray, Elfman, and others could no longer hold back. They led the charge and met Phantom Lord's vanguard in a brutal exchange of magic. The war between Fairy Tale and Phantom Lord had officially begun. Then Makarov gathered his magic power, eyes fixed on Jose, who had taken refuge in the castle with the four elements. He rolled up his sleeves, prepared to take charge, when Chess strolled over calmly. Guildmaster, Chess said with a small smile, leave this dirty, tiring fighting to us young people. You're an old man. Rest easy and go back to the guild to have some tea. It was the same play as before. With the old man at his best, the result was almost certain. Chess was taking this chance to test how wide the gap still was between himself and a veteran Saint 10. Not an internal duel like the one with Urza, but an all-out fight with nothing held back. Chapter 88, Target, Destroy the Magic Giant. Well, as much as I'd love to personally go beat up Jose, if you're ordering it, there's nothing I can do. Unexpectedly, Makarov agreed almost without hesitation, as if he'd already expected this. The enemy is strong this time, but as long as your hearts are true, your power will keep flowing. He turned his back on Chess and watched Natsu and the others as they slowly crushed the Phantom Lord troops. Fight with everything you've got. I'll be watching from behind. The seriousness in his face vanished and was replaced by a mischievous grin. He skipped back toward the guild, muttering to himself in an altogether inappropriate tone. Time to drink tea and look at gravure idols. The cover girl in the latest issue looks absolutely stunning. Urza sighed, rubbing her forehead helplessly. Good grief. Mira kept her usual smile. Macau, standing closer, pricked up his ears and stared longingly after the old man. The latest gravure issue. That momentary distraction was all it took for a Phantom Lord magician to take a swing with his greatsword. Oh no, this is bad. Smoke magic struck from the side, sending the would-be assassin flying. Old man, this is a battle. Wakaba stood with his hands in his pockets, a pipe clenched in his mouth. Sorry, you're welcome. Macau scratched the back of his head and thanked him. After we finish with Phantom Lord, let's go ask the Guildmaster for that gravure magazine. Of course, Wakaba replied. A brief exchange of glances, and the two perverts unleashed an astonishing surge of magic power. They forced the attacking Phantom Lord mages to recoil step by step. No wonder people said magic comes from the heart. If Lucy wasn't already down, she'd be complaining loudly about all this. Buzz. A commotion came from the six-legged walker moored on the lake. The mechanical limbs shuddered and retracted, sending waves across the water. The castle buildings on the small island rotated and reassembled like components on a machine. In a blink, a terrifying giant with glowing red eyes rose up before the stunned Fairy Tale members. The exasperated Jose had activated the walker's final form, the magic giant. Slowly, the giant raised a mechanical arm and began tracing a vast dark gold magic circle in the air. Ah! Is the Guildmaster going to use that? Wait. We're still here. No, we have to run. The town will be obliterated. Seeing the legendary circle, the Phantom Lord vanguard, already being crushed, lost their will to fight. They discarded their armor and fled in terror. Jose had not intended to activate the magic giant at the start of the war. Because Makarov was present, a large-scale spell like Inferno Shatter, which needed time to charge, should have been impossible to complete. But Jose, patiently tuning himself for the Saint 10 battle, had seen Makarov skip back into the guild on the communication image. That casual disregard stoked his fury, If Makarov wouldn't make a move, then Jose decided to burn the whole town to ash. That circle, it's the forbidden magic, Inferno Shatter. Mira's pupils narrowed when she recognized the pattern. This was infinitely more dangerous than Jupiter. Mira, can we do anything about it? Urza asked. With the guildmaster counting on them to stop this, they couldn't let such a devastating spell be completed. Large-scale spells like this have a power source. If we can destroy that source during the activation, we can halt it. So we need to break into the giant and wreck whatever's powering it. Yes, it looks like we have about 10 minutes. That's plenty. Urza smiled with confidence. When it comes to causing destruction, Fairy Tail has plenty of specialists, especially a couple of hotheads. She changed into her giant armor, charged forward, and grabbed Natsu and Gray, still tangled with Phantom Lord soldiers. No time to explain. Hold on. Natsu and Gray were too bewildered to protest as Urza heaved them and flung them toward the magic giant on the lake. Ah! Mira, what are Natsu and the others going to do? Elfman tore a Phantom Lord soldier apart and moved to Mira's side. This is our chance, a long-awaited showdown with Urza and the others. Maybe it was the others' rising fighting spirit or worry for Urza, but Mira stepped forward, dark purple magic surging around her. In the next second, the cold-faced demon form appeared. Elfman, equally confused, shot into the air with Natsu and Gray. Although I never said I wanted to compete with Urza. I'm a man. Elfman struck a macho pose, raised his arms, and carved a graceful arc into the giant, entering the interior alongside Mira. Throughout it all, neither Urza nor Mira glanced at Chess. For them, Chess's true opponent had always been Jose, the guildmaster, so he belonged where the toughest challenge was. That unspoken understanding between the S-class mages was more a matter of trust than anything else. With both teams having landed safely, Chess shifted his attention to Lucy, smiling. How are you doing, Lucy? You can fight, right? No matter what, I'm a fairy tale mage. Lucy pulled out her celestial spirit keyring and nodded. Then her expression changed dramatically. No way, Chess. People could die. From Chess's malicious grin, she guessed what he intended. She wasn't tough like Natsu, Gray, or Elfman. If she were flung into that giant, she might break down before she even fought. Huh? Aren't you supposed to be part of the strongest team? You should be fighting side by side. Chess's features twisted into an unnerving, sinister smile. Lucy shrank back, hugging herself, face full of resistance. Actually, what I meant was, you can go find Happy. Lucy blinked as realization hit her. She'd almost forgotten about Happy. She hurried to find him, and the cat was in the middle of wreaking havoc, dual-wielding dried fish like weapons. After a quick explanation, Lucy and Happy headed off toward the magic giant to rendezvous with Natsu and the others. Chess took a breath and slid several cards from his hand. Magic card, Book of Seek, slightly increases maximum magic power. Magic card, Horn of the Unicorn, strengthens card power and boosts self-defense. Pot of Greed, accelerates one's own magic recovery. Magician's Power, raises allied magic attack power and casting speed. Trap card, Stamina Booster, supered, instantly restores full magic power. The opponent was a formidable 10-wizard saint. For him, an S-class, laying down a few buffs beforehand, wasn't asking too much. Chapter 89, Fate's Arrangement, Gray and Juvia. While Chess was activating his card effect, a Phantom Lord Magician slipped past the scattered vanguard and crept behind him. A weakness. "Ha! I'll take down the S-class Chess first," the man crowed. As soon as he was in range, the magician erupted, a magic circle blazing in his hands as he charged Chess with a wild laugh. Phantom Lord's front lines had been routed by Inferno Shatter and the Fairy Tail counterattack, but every guild has one or two reckless fools who think glory comes from bringing down an S-class opponent. They were brave, foolishly so. Buzz. A column of dark golden magic slammed down from the sky onto the would-be assassin. Boom. The ground cracked under the pressure. The Phantom Lord Magician coughed up blood, his eyes rolling back, and he collapsed, unconscious. In the Magic Giant's control room, Jose watched the scene through the magic projection crystal. Even the guildmaster of Phantom Lord, cunning and treacherous, couldn't suppress a twitch of amusement. A weakness, huh? How quaint. Guildmaster, judging from that stance, he's coming after you, Earth Element Sol said, pointing at Chess. Chess had a single horn, a floating magic book, and a strange pot beside him, his body twisting like a writhing maggot. Sol's voice oozed mockery. To be a mere soldier and still try to challenge the king across ranks, what arrogance, utterly lacking in etiquette. Wind element Arya folded his bandaged hands, tears perpetually leaking from his eyes for reasons no one could fathom. Seeing such absolute power makes me weep for the weak, he sniffled theatrically. No preparation helps when you are so small. Jose's cold gaze stayed fixed on Chess's image. Makarov underestimated me, he said softly. I'll make those brats he cherishes taste hell. He hated Chess for repeatedly foiling Phantom Lord's schemes. He wanted the boy brought to him so he could exact his revenge. He shifted his eyes to the long-haired man crouched nearby, gnawing on a piece of iron. Gajeel, how are you feeling? I'm back to peak. Gajeel snapped, grinding the metal between his teeth until it crumbled. Veins stood out on his forehead. Hatred burned in his eyes. Damn fairy tale. What they did to me. They'll pay. He brewed of last night's humiliation, being stripped and hung in public, burned in him. Don't fail this time, or I'll be very disappointed, Jose said lightly, but the words carried a chill Gajeel understood only too well. Got it. I'll go intercept the intruders who slipped in. Gajeel patted his clothes and rose. Fire Dragon Natsu, Ice Make Gray, Beast Soul Elfman, watch me beat them into kneeling and begging for mercy. Last night had bitten some of Gajeel's arrogance away. He didn't mention Urza or Mirajane, who had snuck in with the others. Who knew if all fairy tales S-class were unreasonable monsters like Chess? Jose nodded. Sol, Arya, move out too. Bring me that immortal fairy alive, and leave them alive. I want to torture them in front of Makarov. Understood. We'll do it. Sol twisted his body and sank into the earth, while Arya condensed into a hurricane and vanished. Fire element Totemaru and water element Juvia, however, had already moved ahead and found the intruders. On the shoulder of the magic giant, rubble lay everywhere. Hiss! Ow! That Urza hits just as hard as ever. Gray pulled his head free from the debris, sat up, and massaged his bruised forehead. Through Warren's telepathic magic, he'd learned the mission: find the magic giant's power source and destroy it to prevent Inferno Shatter from being activated. Time was everything. Weren't the skies clear when we flew in? Gray said, bewildered, extending his hand. Sparse droplets fell into his palm. In an instant, the rain intensified, hammering down in a curtain that blurred everything. Through that curtain, a figure slowly approached, a woman in a stovepipe hat, a deep blue outfit, and a pink umbrella. That's right, Juvia, Phantom Lord's water element, someone nearby chanted, almost mockingly. 4 elements? Are you one of Phantom Lord's S-class? Gray's expression sharpened. A half-smile touched his lips. My luck's really something. Luck? Gray meant it. Meeting Juvia here felt like fate. The thought made his chest flush with a strange heat. Juvia, hovering under her umbrella, felt something happen too. Seeing the handsome man emerging from the rain made her grip the umbrella tighter. Her heart began to race as if it would burst. For a moment, she forgot everything else. Gray, focused on the mission, assumed a fighting stance without realizing the fluttering in Juvia's chest. He couldn't waste time. The magic giant's power source had to be destroyed. If you dare harm the guild or my comrades, I won't show mercy, even to a woman, he warned, stern and ready. Juvia's eyes sharpened, but she didn't attack. She stared instead, and then, as if surrendering to some sudden, uncontrollable feeling, she turned and began to walk away. Gray blinked, baffled. The two of them stood under the rain for a beat, then 2.5 seconds stretched by in tense silence. Okay, Juvia surrenders. Wish you well, she called over her shoulder, stamping away with neither hesitation nor shame, her heart pounding wildly. She felt certain she had fallen, completely and irrevocably. Hey! Hey, what are you doing? Gray, braced for a fight and utterly confused by her behavior, could only shout after her. Chapter 90. Your door quality is too poor. Guildmaster Jose, inside the magic giant. In a spacious chamber where Gray and Juvia lay tangled, a sudden explosion rocked the room. Scorching flames roared up, heating the air, striking the ceiling, and sending a steady rain of debris crashing down. So that's it. You're the Fire Dragon Slayer, Natsu, huh? Bad luck for you, or unlucky? Totemaru of the 4 elements stood on a shattered stone pillar, looking down at Natsu with a smirk. Hey, idiot, didn't I tell you I just swallowed all your flames? Natsu shot back. Natsu raised a hand and pointed at Totemaru. No matter what kind of flames you throw at me, they're useless. Come down and fight fair. Totemaru gave a lazy smile. Then how about this? He traced a magic circle with a casual backhand, conjuring a deep orange fireball that sang through the air, radiating viscous heat. Without hesitation, Natsu reached for it, opening his mouth to devour the attack as he always did. The orange fire vanished into him, transforming into pure magic power. Then Natsu's face twisted, and he doubled over, gagging. Ah! He retched on the floor, looking thoroughly disgusted. What the hell did you put in your flame? Ahahaha! How does expired milk mixed with gutter water flame taste? Totemaru cackled. He'd heard how dragon slayers like Gajeel would curse after chewing on rusty metal and had come up with this trick. It wasn't deadly, but it was mean and effective. Natsu certainly wouldn't be swallowing any strange flames anytime soon. Natsu recovered, clenching his fists as fire reignited across his skin. You said any flame would be useless against me, right? Totemaru's eyes narrowed. Then what if it's your own flame? A dark red magic circle flared. With a casual twitch of a finger, Totemaru seized control of the flames Natsu had unleashed. Before Natsu could react, his own fist was driven back into his face by the flames he'd generated. A dull crack echoed as Natsu flew and slammed into the rubble. That's why it's bad luck to meet me, Totemaru declared, hands in his pockets, arrogance radiating from him. I can control all flames. On the wide road that skirted the magic giant, Elfman moved fast, scanning for anything that could be the giant's energy core. He understood the mission clearly. Since Mira asked for it, I can't lose to Natsu and the others. I have to destroy the target before they do. This is our first joint operation with Mira since she released her magic. I won't fail. As he grunted, the path ahead suddenly collapsed. Dust and stones billowed up, and from the cloud a figure straightened. Gajeel stepped out, iron-scented and grinning. I finally found you. Fairy tale, he announced. Elfman blinked. He'd heard Jose threaten them earlier and remembered a shadowy figure lurking while Jose did his boasting. But now Gajeel stood in front of him, and the heat of his magic made it clear this wasn't a minor opponent. Listen up, Gajeel declared, chest puffed. I'm Phantom Lord's ace, Gajeel Iron Dragon Slayer. After a beat, Elfman's scowl broke into a slap of recognition. You're the one Chess and Natsu stripped and strung up on the clock tower. Gajeel's face twisted at the reminder, and then a violent, ghostly cyan aura burst from him, shaking the ground. You damn bastards! I'll tear you apart! Gajeel surged forward, crushing stone beneath his feet. Elfman inhaled, then stepped out to meet him. Black lightning crackled as the Beast King's soul filled him, a dark purple magic circle erupting above his head and sending the kingly majesty of a beast cascading down his form. Elfman grinned, the challenge in his voice. That graffiti on your butt should be gone by now, right? If not, I can touch it up for you. Gajeel snapped. Without another word, he lunged with his Iron Dragon sword. They collided in a titanic clash. The shockwaves alone obliterated everything nearby. Meanwhile, Chess had finished boosting her attributes and prepared to summon. Using the chain of the Black Magician Girl and the Sage's stone card, she completed the ritual. Finally, I'm gonna go beat up that bastard Jose, Black Magician Girl squealed, waving her pink staff. She'd been raring for payback ever since she found out what Jose had done. Don't underestimate him, Black Magician warned, folding his arms and staring up at the magic giant's head. He's a 10 Wizard Saints level mage, as strong as Makarov. Yes! Black Magician Girl planted herself in a disciplined pose. Come on, we can't keep our enemy waiting, Chess said, and with that she condensed her magic into a dark golden stream and shot up toward the magic giant's head. Black Magician and Black Magician Girl followed in a shower of dark purple and pink light. They swept into the command room at the giant's crown, cutting down the Phantom Lord grunts who tried to hold the door. Then the heavy door exploded inward in a cloud of splinters and stone. The blast and debris turned the immaculate command room into a ruin. Jose, sitting cross-legged amid the wreckage, propped his cheek on his hand and looked at the three intruders with bored amusement. You didn't even know the basic etiquette of knocking? Hasn't Makarov taught you any manners? He said, tone dripping with disdain. Chess stopped about 10 meters away, brushing debris off her shoulder and smiling. Sorry, I actually did knock, she said, but your door quality is terrible, Guildmaster Josie. Chapter 91, Chase versus Joseph. Speaking of which, you really went through with it, parading our ace magician like that in Oak City. Jose lowered the arm that had been propping his chin, his face darkening. He rose slowly and descended from the main dais toward the floor. Phantom Lord has been expanding in the kingdom of Fiora for years. You're the first to insult us so openly. With each step his polished leather boots took, Jose's magic power thickened around him, a heavy, dark purple mist seeping into the air. He didn't use the common elements of most magicians. His craft was a non-mainstream dark magic. The aura it gave off was foul and oppressive, nausea-inducing to anyone not accustomed to it. Don't worry, Guildmaster Jose. That won't happen again, Chess said calmly, stirring his own magic power to counter the chill crawling toward him. Even standing still, Jose radiated the force of a former 10-wizard saint. His power was in a different league from ordinary S-class mages. If you're going to confess and apologize now, it's a little late, you stinky brat. Jose's voice dripped contempt as he reached the last step and stopped before Chess. Idiot! From today on, Phantom Lord will remove your Phantom Lord. Black Magician Girl stepped in front of Chess and jabbed a finger at Josie's nose. It was only a summon, like my Phantom soldiers. Jose gave her a sinister look. In the next instant, a cold, seething maelstrom of darkness burst out and swallowed Black Magician Girl and the entire command room. This was the Death Aura, a field suppression born of his dark magic. Any mage caught in it would have their magic power assimilated, their senses clouded with nausea and fear. It didn't kill directly, but it tormented the spirit and crushed the will. With his depth of power, Jose often didn't need to attack. He could break an opponent's resolve and render them useless. Black Magician Girl bristled, clutching at her constantly fluttering skirt as the storm whipped around her. Humph, Master, this guy's not just stupid, he's a pervert, just like Uncle Macau, she said on edge, more worried about being exposed than the death aura itself. You can tell by looking at his face, Chess said with an amused chuckle. Jose's mouth twitched angrily. Who's the pervert? I'm a well-known gentleman. What's a gentleman? Black Magician spat back. Someone who'd go out of his way to avoid even a super cute girl who needed to use the restroom. Come on. Jose wasn't surprised that the trio could stand up to his death aura. This was only a basic application of it, but if they wanted to throw perversion accusations, he'd defend himself. Enough, Guildmaster Jose. I didn't come here for your lecture on manners. Chess stepped forward. His magic power surged, a dark golden torrent tearing through the gloomy storm and scattering it into nothing. Jose stopped mid-rant, eyes narrowing, the cold light of calculation flashing through them. You've protected the island, raised Fairy Tale's reputation, thwarted my plans again and again, and your magic power rivals Phantom Lord's S-class, Jose growled. For talented mages like you, there's more than one in Fairy Tale. It's you brats who keep the world from seeing Phantom Lord as the strongest. Dark purple energy erupted from Jose, a twisted mix of jealousy and fury contorting his face as he launched an attack at Chess. The air detonated with a violent blast, throwing up dust and debris where Chess had stood. When the magic circle's light cleared, flames speared into the air, and a roaring bone dragon, the cursed dragon, blazed into being and charged toward Jose. Jose raised an eyebrow, and a nauseating phantom mist flowed from his right arm. With a casual push, he stopped the dragon's momentum dead. Even the hellfire scorching the stone pillars and walls was cut off by his phantom mist, unable to harm him in the slightest. The power's there, but it's weak, Jose sneered. He lifted his left palm, a magic circle spinning over it. Ghost arrow! Dense purple bolts shot out like deadly fireworks, shredding the cursed dragon into glittering shards of light. The fragments still carried force and converged on Chess from every angle, detonating in rapid succession. Before the dust settled, Jose's clenched fists shaped a monstrous phantom skull radiating malice. He took a step forward, ready to finish Chess, when a magic circle inscribed with runes flared beneath his feet. Golden lines wound together, forming a hexagram that locked around Jose's body. Trap card, hexagram of binding. Activate, came the declaration. Jose, frozen in place, examined the hexagram with a bored expression. Brat, let me teach you a lesson in Makarov's name. This childish trick won't hold a 10-wizard saint. He flexed, and the giant phantom's skull trembled, roaring. Under the weight of his magic power, the hexagram began to crack. The surface split and shattered in less than 2 seconds. "Little trick?" Chess said coolly. "Isn't holding you long enough?" A violent storm sprang up, shredding the scattered fragments of the hexagram and whipping rubble into the air. In the heart of that whirlwind, Chess's cloak billowed, and a magic card flashed between his fingers. Behind him, Black Magician and Black Magician Girl raised their staffs in unison. The two staves intersected and sent out a powerful wave of energy, dark lightning that tore through the flying debris. Jose's pupils contracted as he stared straight at the meeting point of the staves. "That is Unison Raid?" Unison Raid required perfect synchronization of will, breath, and magic power. It was a pinnacle technique many mages pursued their entire lives without achieving, and now these fairy tale brats had pulled it off. Jose's expression darkened. He gathered both giant phantoms into his palms and crushed them, compressing their magic power into a dense, malignant sphere. "Brat, go to hell, Death Storm!" "Quick play magic card, Black Burst Magical," Chess shouted. The black ball of dark lightning and the purple beams surged and smashed into each other like colliding meteors. The impact detonated with a force that made hearts lurch. Every glass window in the command room shattered. Stone pillars and walls split and collapsed outward. The entire magical giant trembled as the two titanic forces battled for dominance. Chapter 92, Demon and Fairy Queen Fight Side by Side Rumble. Inside the magical giant, Urza, wearing her Heaven's Wheel armor, cut down wave after wave of Phantom Lord grunts with a cold, precise sweep of her sword. She glanced up at the ceiling as rubble tumbled down. A shadow of worry crossed her face. She muttered under her breath, "I have to stop that inferno shatter. Fast." The floor before her began to writhe. "Powerful and beautiful Fairy Queen, what an honor to meet you here," a sing-song voice drawled. "At a time like this, I ought to greet you in a proper 372 melody." No. The earth element, Saul, rose from the shifting ground like a sculpture coming to life, his smooth frame twisting into view. A monocle perched on one eye, and his expression was lascivious. "You're one of Phantom Lord's 4 elements?" Urza asked, frowning. "Yes, O Fairy Queen," Saul purred. "Though it may be a little rude to say to a girl, I am a splendid and powerful earth. Surely you can forgive my impudence?" He grinned unpleasantly. Urza barely had time to register the strange man. She wasn't going to waste words. Requip, Black Wing Armor. Black wings unfurled, whipping a gust of wind as Urza dashed forward, her blade flashing cold light. Saul only smirked and idly stroked his green mustache. "I'm afraid I already peeked into the deepest vulnerable part of your heart." The ground before Saul bulged and shifted like wet clay, coalescing into the shapes of children in shackles: Jelal, Wally, Sho, Simon, and Miliana. They were all faces from Urza's childhood at the Tower of Paradise. "Urza, why won't you stay with me?" one began. "Sister Urza, it hurts. Why didn't you come back all these years?" "Urza, why did you betray us? We agreed we'd leave together. Why are you the only one who got free?" Even Old Man Rob, the man who had protected Urza, appeared, battered and bloodied, groaning in pain. Each figure closed in on Urza with eyes full of accusation. Urza knew, rationally, that the images were illusions, earth element tricks, but familiarity hit her like a physical blow. Her knees trembled, and her sword dropped from her slackened grip. Those faces pulled at the worst memories she had, a wound she could not ignore. Heh, got her. Before Sol could enjoy his victory, mist swirled behind Urza. The wind element, Arya, emerged from it, a sinister smile curving his lips. He extended both hands toward her, forming a cold, precise domain. "The Fairy Queen dancing in the wind cannot escape the fate of having her wings broken and falling," he mocked, shedding fake tears. His palms glowed with magic power meant to drain his foes. "Airspace! Annihilation!" Urza hadn't recovered from the vision. Before she could move, a magic circle bloomed around her, and a tearing pain spread through her. Her magic power was being sucked away like an avalanche. She staggered as the energy drained from her limbs. At that moment, the ceiling trembled violently. A black, clawed hand smashed through the rock and lunged for Arya. Startled, Arya had to break off his spell, dissipating into mist to evade the strike. A tall, darkly beautiful figure, Demon Mira, dropped down and caught Urza before she fell to her knees. "I felt your magic flux and came as soon as I could. Mira said, steadying Urza. She cast a sharp glance at Arya and Sol, who had rejoined each other. Getting ambushed by trash like that, hardly your style, Urza. Urza lowered her head, ashamed and breathless. She gave herself a moment to steady her emotions, then set her jaw. Determination flared back into her eyes. A brilliant light enveloped her, and she shifted into her purgatory armor. The look she gave the men who toyed with memories was lethal. She wanted them to understand hell. Mira's worried expression melted into something like excitement. If I'm not mistaken, this is our first time fighting side by side, isn't it? In this formation? Urza's eyes flared a deep purgatory red. We'll show those who attacked our guild and our friends what happens when they mess with us. Together, Demon and Purgatory erupted with crushing auras that pressed like a storm. Sol's confident smile slackened, cold sweat dotted his forehead. As an S-class mage himself, instinctual fear prickled through him. The power emanating from the two women felt like a force that could swallow him whole. Since the ambush failed, we have to adapt, Sol muttered. Arya, by contrast, seemed to relish the turn. He untied the bandages that had kept his power in check and revealed a pair of strange, intense eyes beneath. A thin smile curved his lips. Now we can truly enjoy this fight. Bestow upon them endless sorrow and despair, Sol. On a different battlefield, Natsu faced Totemaru and felt the ground under his feet tremble. He forced his stance steady and took a quick step back. Wait, this magic. Lucy, held aloft by Happy, watched the giant shiver with wide eyes. She had followed the trail of flames and finally found Natsu. No doubt about it. The guy Chess has started fighting Jose, she breathed. Natsu's grin widened at the confirmation. Heh, I don't know where you get the confidence to keep smiling like that, Totemaru said coldly. Your guild master's power far exceeds what you can imagine. If you dared to challenge him, your friend will regret it. Too late for him now. He's the one who doesn't know how terrifying Chess is. Natsu shot back without thinking. Totemaru sneered. A guy who can't even control his own flames, hardly credible. Oh yeah? Want to see what I can do? Natsu cracked his knuckles and flashed that same grin. After trading blows, he'd read the man's magic and felt a surge of confidence in his own power. Without hesitation, he unleashed Dragon Slayer magic, fire roaring up around him as he prepared to press the attack. Chapter 93. This sky doesn't need two dragons. No matter how much you struggle, the outcome won't change. You'll only end up hurting yourself. Watching Natsu's fists erupt in scorching flames, Totemaru slowly raised his hand and looked at Lucy with a sinister smile. No, this time I'll make your flames strike your own comrade. Just the thought of that is kind of nice, huh? Totemaru sneered. He recoiled in shock when the flames encircling Natsu's hands, which had been under Totemaru's control until now, snapped wildly out of line like a rampaging beast. Even when Totemaru tried to increase his magic output, he only managed a brief, impotent flicker. If you're going to use it to hurt Lucy, I absolutely won't let you succeed. Natsu forced the chaotic fire in his hands into shape and roared. This is the power Igneel taught me. Don't think you can steal it for yourself. Ah! Buzz, the flames broke free of Totemaru's control and swelled. Natsu brought his palms together, and the fire coalesced into a massive burning sphere above his hands. Counter control? You actually mastered that technique so quickly? Totemaru blurted in disbelief. As a Phantom Lord representative who had fought countless fire mages, he was used to easy victories. He'd never faced someone like Natsu, who seemed to grow stronger in the middle of a fight. Natsu didn't give him time to be shocked. He leapt up and hurled the flame sphere. Take this, Fire Dragon's brilliant flame. The heat was extreme. It melted everything in its path. Even Totemaru, a master of flame magic, wouldn't face that head-on and dodged. The tumbling fireball smashed through walls and corridors until, with lethal accuracy, it struck Gajeel, who was locked in a fierce clash with Beast King Elfman. Boom! The remaining force detonated, unleashing overwhelming flames and light. Natsu and Lucy and Happy! Elfman blinked in surprise. Yo, Elfman, what are you doing here? Natsu grinned. Mira sent me. She said we couldn't lose to your strongest team. Elfman replied. Aha, that explains it. Well, you can head back now. We're fine here. Natsu said. What are you talking about? You're the ones who should go back. Man! before they could finish a single sentence, the two began bickering across the distance. Lucy could only stare. "Damn fire dragon bastard. You know you can't beat me, so you hide behind me in ambush, right?" Gajeel shouted, violent blue magic flaring around him. He shoved off the slab of stone that had pinned him and glared at Natsu. He'd shown his face, only to be humiliated and hung from the tower earlier by Chess. Now, just when he had a chance to redeem himself, a fireball hit him out of nowhere. His luck since the attack on Fairy Tail had been awful, and his temper snapped. Natsu, as another dragon slayer, couldn't let the taunt stand. He clenched his blazing fists. "Want to find out? You scrap metal bastard with a middle finger tattoo on your butt." That pushed Gajeel's buttons. He transformed, iron scales bristling, and roared, "I'll kill you!" "Hey, Natsu, that guy's my opponent," Elfman objected, annoyed. It was useless. Natsu and Gajeel had already collided, two dragons erupting into an incredibly fierce aerial battle. "Aye! This sky doesn't need two dragons," Happy observed with perfect seriousness. "Is that something you should be saying?" Lucy snapped. "Oh, right, Lucy. Did you notice something serious?" Happy asked. "What?" Natsu ran off. "What about the four elements on our side?" Lucy froze, then shouted in horror and anger. "Can you tell me that sooner next time, you dead cat? They're just chatting casually over there, right in front of me." Totemaru muttered, his eyes going dark. Magic power surged around him. "No matter what, I'm an S-class mage of Phantom Lord. I've been completely underestimated." Flame magic, 7-colored flame, 7 streams of differently colored fire shot from the sigils he'd constructed, merging as they sped toward Lucy and Happy. At the last moment, a magic ring flared to life and several cards whipped in from the side. 2 streams of magic slammed into Totemaru's 7-colored flames with a shower of sparks. "Bullying the cute girls of our guild is something I absolutely won't allow," Kana declared. "So that guy is one of Phantom Lord's 4 elements?" Lucy asked, startled as 2 figures materialized. "Loki, Kana, how did you get here?" Lucy demanded. "The Phantom Lord mages and soldiers on the shore have mostly been dealt with. The guild master sent us to support you," Kana replied, one hand on her hip as she displayed several cards. "Inferno Shatter is linked through body link magic. If we defeat the 4 elements, it will stop." Loki followed with a grave expression. "The guild master? Didn't he go back to the guild to drink tea?" Happy offered, confused. Kana looked up at the sky and spoke in a low voice. "It's too dangerous to stay here any longer. We have to stop Inferno Shatter as quickly as possible and escape the magic giant." "Dangerous how?" Lucy began, but thunder cut her off. A blinding bolt slashed from the sky, and a terrifying wave of magic power rippled down from above, shaking the entire Phantom Lord headquarters. Debris fell and clattered. The lake's waters were pulled by the surge, rising in heavy waves that battered the magic giant. Lucy felt the air leave her lungs. Her comrades fighting along the shore were likewise stunned. They all stared at the scene, the sky roaring, the lake swelling, the ground trembling. Inside the ruined guild, Makarov closed the glamorous gravure idol photo book, put his hands behind his back, and walked slowly to the window. "Battles between the Saint Ten are enough to cause natural disasters. Chess, that brat, has really reached this level already." Chapter 94. Chaos Black Magic Ritual. At the top of the magic giant, torrents of black, purple, and dark gold magic slammed into each other. The shockwaves swept outward, shredding everything in the area. A powerful recoil threw Jose and Ches back again and again. From the distance they staggered before they regained their footing. It was clear who had the upper hand. Jose. "To have such power at your age, kid, you've surprised me," Jose said, brushing dust off his clothes. His gaze on Chess had turned venomous. From the moment he launched the full-scale assault, his target had been Makarov. Whether it had been the magic cluster cannon Jupiter at the start or the Inferno Shatter he was now activating, every move had been meant to weaken Makarov. In Jose's eyes, no one in Fairy Tail mattered but that old man. Why waste care on a roadside ant when you could toy with it until it died? But now he was being forced to accept an ugly truth. The ant before him could actually be a threat. Jose couldn't bear the idea that someone besides Makarov in Fairy Tail could be so dangerous. "This was a move I planned to save for Makarov," Jose snarled. "But if I beat you half to death and throw you at him, that old man's weaknesses might show, right?" so I'll give you a special taste of what it means to be true despair. A wicked aura spilled out of Josei. His pupils darkened to pitch black, and his magic surged visibly, climbing at frightening speed. He was getting serious. Sorry, Guildmaster Jose, Chess said, breathing in to steady himself from the strain of battle. I've already felt despair on the Kiltina continent. I won't trouble you with it. Besides, he added, shifting his stance, I'm more interested in seeing just how sturdy your Phantom Lord headquarters really is. Knowing that the 4 elements experience points should have already been farmed by his companions, with Urza and Mira in fighting condition, they'd likely swept through. Chess decided not to hold back. He would go all out. He drew a ritual magic card, and the magic around him, already turbulent from Jose's surge, burst into even greater chaos. The scattered stones around them floated free of gravity and hovered between the 2 combatants. A dark red hexagram flared into being beneath them, ringed by a circle of runes. On either side stood cylindrical altars. Ches glanced at the Black Magician and Black Magician girl beside him. The master and his disciple met his look and nodded. Instantly they transformed into streams of light, one purple, one pink, and poured into the altars, igniting the hexagram. Flames laced with a terrible magical aura burned up from the altars. Black mist boiled out and swelled into thick clouds above. Chaos! Black magic ritual! Activate! Chess called, lifting the glowing card between his fingers. Descend, chaotic sovereign born of light and dark. Chaos Black Magician. Chaos Black Magician, 8-star monster card. The supreme figure among black magicians, possessing extraordinary magical mastery. As the strongest card in Chess's deck next to the Sky Dragon, the Chaos Black Magician demanded every ounce of his strength to summon. Unlike the Black Magician and the Black Magician girl, who could roam freely, the Chaos Black Magician was usually dormant because of its enormous cost. What kind of monster was this brat trying to bring forth? Josie's black eyes narrowed. A magician attuned to dark arts, he sensed something unprecedented stirring in the heart of the black clouds. If it were any other time, I could wait and see, Jose muttered, but right now, I don't have time to play with you. He traced a circle in the air with arcs of crackling lightning. Despair, dark spiral. A dark purple spiral burst forth, aimed straight at the hexagram and its altars. The spiral sliced through the ritual circle, shredding the altars and tearing at the black clouds. Sorry, Guildmaster Jose, the ritual's already complete. Chess smiled and looked up. Jose glanced upward just in time to see a tall figure, dark and fierce, suspended in the air. The man wore a black and red robe and a wide-brimmed wizard's hat curled at the sides. Stern features, a staff in his hand, and eyes that flashed gold. The Chaos Black Magician spoke little, but his actions were decisive. He swung his staff, condensing the most potent of black magic. Wind exploded outward. Pure black lightning gathered at the staff's tip and coalesced into a dense sphere that seemed to peel at the fabric of space itself. Jose's pupils tightened. He swung his right arm, a Phantom Lord energy sheath tracing the motion, and loosed a venomous purple blast like a coiled snake. Dark Current! Chess snapped another card into play. A screaming tornado erupted around Jose, ripping away the dark current that had wrapped his arm. It was a quick-play magic card designed to nullify an opponent's magic. Cyclone. You damn card brat! Jose swore as his attack evaporated unpredictably. He had to adapt fast. At the same moment, the giant pitch-black energy sphere dropped from the sky. The Chaos Black Magician swung his staff without changing expression. Destruction Rune, Black Seal. The sphere struck Jose and swallowed him whole. An immense destructive force detonated, tearing down through more than a dozen levels and straight to the base of the magic giant. The blast mixed black lightning and flame into a ravenous roar. The structure began to give way. Parts of the castle collapsed, clouds of rubble cascaded, and the magic giant, its core support shattered, lurched and knelt toward the lake. The mechanical arm that had been inscribing the Inferno Shatter fell limp. The giant magic circle dissipated. It wasn't Chess's intention to destroy all of it. It happened because Phantom Lord's 4 elements, the machines that fed the giant's power, had all been defeated and rendered useless. The inner chamber began collapsing bit by bit. Inside, Natsu lay battered, bloodied, and gasping on the floor. Lucy and Kana were injured but in better shape. Nearby, Gajeel and Totemaru lay unconscious, their eyes rolled back. "Hey! What are you doing there?" A familiar voice shouted from the end of the crumbling corridor. Urza and Mira burst through, climbing over falling stones, each shouldering an element, wind and earth, and racing into the chaos. Chapter 95, Osiris's Summoning Lightning Roar. "Yo, Urza, did you take down one of the 4 elements? That's awesome!" Natsu lay on the ground, craning his head up to grin proudly at Urza, but the one I took out was Phantom Lord's ace, Gajeel. Before he could finish, Urza grabbed him by the collar and flung him back toward the shore, effectively sending him the way he'd come. "We can celebrate later. We need to get out of this place first," she said sternly. Urza, Natsu's already gone." Lucy raised a trembling hand. "Is that so? Then you're next." "Happy Sama, save me," came the cry. "Aye. Wait, Happy Lucy, what about us?" Others shouted as Urza and Mira hurriedly sent everyone away. This time, things were better. Their friends on the shore caught them, sparing them the humiliation of landing on their faces. Loki, however, ended up in the arms of a circle of admiring women. "Where did those weird phantom soldiers go?" Loki asked as he returned to the group. On the shore, Lucy saw that the fight had ended. Many phantom lord mages lay tied up and discarded. They dispersed on their own. Guildmaster Jose can't keep them maintained any longer. Levi clasped Lucy's hand with concern. "Luchan, after going into a place full of monsters like that, are you all right?" "I'm fine." Natsu and Gray did most of the work, her words cut off. "Wait, where's Gray?" "I'm here." Gray's voice came from the water. He hauled himself up onto the embankment, casually dropping Juvia, who was perched on his shoulder, onto the ground. Juvia's eyes were full of hearts, her face flushed. "What happened to her?" "She's a Phantom Lord water mage, right? Why does she look like this?" "Gray, even if she's an enemy, be gentler. You actually beat her up," the others scolded, gathering around to stare at the love-struck Juvia. Gray rubbed his temple. He had questions about her, too. "Then it's just Chess left over there?" Mira said, fingers curled tight at her chest in her wine-red dress. Her eyes flickered with unease. The rest of the team fell silent as they looked toward the lake where the massive magic giant that had been fighting them creaked and began to collapse. Makarov walked up behind them and stood on the shore, his presence steady and reassuring. At the base of the magic giant, dark purple magic churned, throwing up fragments of rock and soil. From the debris, Guildmaster Jose emerged. He was bloodied, hair in disarray, cloaked in tatters, but his aura remained potent. Even wounded, he carried the grim strength of a 10-wizard saint. When struck by Chaos Black Magician's destruction rune, he had activated a defensive circle that absorbed much of the blow. "Damn brat, how could you come this far? I won't forgive you," Jose snarled, his black eyes burning with malice. His gaze pierced through the falling rubble to fix on Chess, who clung to the top of the collapsing giant. A purple circle flared, and phantom soldiers poured out like floodwater, condensing into a dark, spinning vortex that devoured rock on Jose's right palm. Despair, Deathstorm. A beam of dark purple light, several times stronger than normal, streaked into the sky, its destructive aura devouring everything in its path. It aimed straight at the Chaos Black Magician suspended in midair. He spun his staff and raised a black barrier to block the blast. In that same instant, Jose used a burst of high-speed movement magic to appear behind Chess. Despite the overwhelming darkness he faced, Chess kept a clear head. As long as he neutralized the low-combat opponent in front of him, he might still end the fight and deal with Makarov. "This ends now, you card brat! Soul Eater!" Jose bellowed, releasing a binding magic circle that lanced out and trapped Chess before a giant black-purple ghost with a terrible maw formed to devour Chess's soul and magic power. Just as the ghost lunged, a glowing card spun into view. Chess had anticipated Jose and activated it early. 3 shimmering, saint-light protective seal swords descended from the sky and planted themselves around them, clamping down on Jose and the ghost's movement. Chess turned his head slightly. "Guildmaster Jose, didn't I tell you I can break free from boring little tricks?" Jose's sneer hardened as he began to unleash his magic to shatter the seal. But then the Chaos Black Magician, having finished charging, swung his staff with brutal force. "Destruction Rune, Black Mark!" he roared. A black light projectile carrying a killing aura exploded with a massive flash, sweeping through Jose and Chess alike. When the smoke cleared, a battered Jose staggered forward, panting and with clothes further torn. "That skin of his is thick. He didn't even fall," he murmured. Chess coughed through the smoke. Beside him, the little guardian Kuriboh, which had absorbed a lethal strike to protect him, chirped and dissolved into glittering points of light. The Chaos Black Magician drifted down and said gravely, "Your magic power has weakened." Chess gave a tired laugh. "Yeah, that seems about right. My opponent's a Saint 10. After a string of brutal confrontations, his reserves were low. Even maintaining enhancement, cards like Book of Secret Arts had become difficult. The Chaos Black Magician, having seen Chess's exhaustion, nodded. Forcing himself to stay on the board now would only hasten his depletion. "I'm leaving," he said, and with that he voluntarily dispersed and returned to the deck, falling silent. "Next is the final battle," Chess told himself, patting the grime off his face as Jose's rage visibly grew. He had only enough magic left for one trap card, maybe two. Mirror Force was out of the question. He had to gamble on a different trick. "Card brat, I'll kill you!" Jose howled, channeling every scrap of magic he had to complete the Deathstorm circle. Makarov and Fairy Tale slipped from his mind as the attack surged. Chess drew a steady breath and slotted a monster card, Elf Swordsman who turns enemies. The circle flared as the Elf Swordsman materialized and charged, blade poised. Jose looked the summoned creature over with contempt. With a casual flick of his mental power, he loosed a dark arrow that shattered the Elf Swordsman into nothing. "You can only summon such weaklings now," he sneered. "Let Makarov watch closely as I grind you to dust." Jose cried and unleashed the death storm. The fatal beam burst through the cracked ground and hurtled toward Chess. Chess calmly activated the trap card he had prepared. Exchange! A strange spatial force wrapped around him, and the object he swapped with, reformed by the card, was the Elf Swordsman, restored from debris. The death storm tore through the spot where Chess had stood. The Elf Swordsman was obliterated. Jose stared, stunned. His full power strike had missed. By the time he recovered, Chess had reappeared in a safe zone. His right arm was sheathed in a demonic white armor. He didn't have the magic to fully summon a high-level card, but he could borrow some of its properties. He closed his hand until his fingers dug into his palm and reached for the sky. The thunder that had been clashing above them answered, drawn like a magnet. Bolt after bolt converged, coalescing into the majestic shape of a sky dragon. "This is the end, Guildmaster Jose. Receive judgment by thunder." Chess declared. He invoked the move he had named, Osiris's summoning lightning roar. Under Josie's horrified gaze, the lightning sky dragon flexed and roared before diving from the clouds. Lightning erupted in a blinding cascade, striking the lake and bathing Magnolia in a white-gold glare. The already unstable magic giant, under the strain, finally gave way with a thunderous crash and collapsed into a shattering ruin. Chapter 96. Special Card. Guild Bond. Activated. Amidst the wreckage of the giant scattered across the lake, Chess clawed his way out of the debris and was the first to stand. The attack had carried natural lightning, and with the magic giant's collapse, he had been badly affected. Scratches streaked his skin, dirt caked his face, and his once handsome cloak was tattered. The recondensed elf swordsman had also vanished, whether it had been destroyed by Chess's Sky Dragon's lightning roar or had simply dissolved when his magic drained was unclear. Who? Chess's chest heaved. He was panting so hard that even standing on the ruins felt like an effort. He showed all the classic signs of magic exhaustion. Truly, not a single drop left, and yet the outcome was excellent. He had finally taken down Jose, a truly stubborn opponent. More importantly, he'd acquired an incredibly powerful card that could change the entire course of a fight. Chess' face lit up with joy. He was already eager to study the new card. Rumble. Movement came from the ruins ahead. 3 faint purple magic circles pushed apart the remains of the magic giant, and Jose staggered out, clothes torn, hair disheveled, blood streaking his face. Malice and fury contorted him. He'd taken that terrifying lightning strike head-on, and still hadn't fallen. Heh! I didn't expect to be forced into this, Jose rasped. His eyes burned with killing intent as he advanced toward Chess. Damn brat, I am the Guildmaster of Phantom Lord. one of the 10 wizard saints recognized by the council. The victor of this battle is me, Jose Porla. A ferocious purple ghost coalesced at his clenched fist. Compared to his earlier, free-wielding displays of powerful magic, Jose was badly injured now. The condensed spell in his hand was probably no more than A rank, but that was still more than Chess could handle in his current state. Chess hesitated, then sighed. In pure combat strength and remaining magic power, he had to admit there was a gap between himself and a veteran 10-wizard saint like Jose. Of course, that reckoning didn't count the trump card that could turn everything around: Revival of the Dead. If he'd been more cautious before the fight and saved his Super Z stamina enhancer to boost his magic, maybe he could have killed Jose outright. It was too late for that now. From the start of the battle, he'd put himself in a position where he could fight to his heart's content. "You're the victor of this battle?" Chess said, head and chest high, flashing a confident smile. "That's not for certain." A faint light sparked at his fingertips, and a card materialized. The simple action startled Jose. He instantly fashioned the purple ghost into a shield between them. Throughout the fight, Chess's unpredictable tactics, nothing like an ordinary card magician, had rattled him. But seeing the weakened Chess, Jose snarled and let his guard down. He mocked him. "Clumsy bluffing," Jose sneered. "In your fragile state, you're like a candle in the wind. Suppose you have a card. Do you even have the power to use it? Huh?" No matter how powerful a card, without a magician's mana, it was useless. Jose believed he had read the situation correctly. He laughed maniacally, formed the ghost magic into a missile, and hurled it at Chess. "You're right," Chess said calmly, bracing against the hurricane of ghost fire, then flicked the card between his fingers. "But sorry, this card has 0 consumption, Guildmaster Jose." Special card, the Bond of the Guild, activate. On the face of the card was an unexpectedly cheerful, dancing fairy. A dazzling, warm, holy light poured down from the sky, cutting through and obliterating the evil ghost attacking Chess. It vanished without a trace. Click, click, rustle. The sound of footsteps on broken stone and wood grew from far to near, swelling in number and volume. Jose's eyes widened in horror. As he looked past Chess into the golden light, he began to tremble uncontrollably. Figures appeared within the light, one after another, walking slowly toward them to stand guard beside Chess. Mira, Urza, Natsu, Lucy, Grappy, Elfman, Kana, Loki, Levy's team, Osprey's team, the Pervert Squad. Faces filled half the ruins. Every set of eyes fixed on Jose, resolute and grave. It felt as if even the tiniest movement from him would be met instantly by a barrage of spells. Even Jose, arrogant and unflappable, took 2 steps back. Fear had triggered a physical reaction he couldn't control. The holy light intensified, and several shafts of it swept down. Makarov, robed as one of the 10 wizard saints, slowly descended and positioned himself in front of Chess. "According to the rules of fairy law, Jose, you have 3 seconds to consider," Makarov said, standing on a pile of rubble and looking down at him with a stern face. "Kneel and repent for being our enemy." 3. "You want me to kneel and repent? What a joke. I am the Guildmaster of Phantom Lord, the strongest guild in Fiora." Jose snarled, summoning a giant ghost one more time. 2. "Phantom Lord is the strongest. I am the strongest. Damn fairy tale. Disappear for me. Ah!" Madness colored his features as he stamped forward, trying to reach the fairy tale members bathed in light. But the despair that had been building in him finally crushed his facade. He realized he couldn't win. His legs trembled uncontrollably, and with a pointless, final whimper, his body gave out. With a thud, he dropped to his knees on the ruins of his proud magic giant. The summoned ghost magic disintegrated in the holy light. A cool, pleasant breeze blew across the lake, scattering the dark clouds and letting sunlight through. The oppressive tension that had suffused Magnolia dissolved. "This matter ends here. You will face the council's questioning later. Take care of yourself," Makarov said coldly, giving Jose, now kneeling, a warning look. Then his stern expression softened into relief and joy as he turned to the children. "Everyone did a great job. We won." Oh. The fairy tale members raised their arms and cheered. Chess wasn't among them. Exhausted of magic, he had no strength left to move. He lay limp in Mira's broad, gentle embrace. "Mira," he murmured, looking up. From this angle, he could see her fair, flawless face. She lowered her eyes to meet his, and a sweet smile curved her lips. Am I handsome? Chess asked. Handsome, Mira answered. Chapter 97. Fusion is the most noble summoning method. When Mira's words died away, Natsu, Gray, and the others clustered around. Aha! Chess! You really are something. Completely tore their guild HQ to pieces. I also took down 17 Phantom Lord mages. Do you really need to remember it that precisely? Hey, Gray, I heard you beat a woman. What are you laughing at, you dead cat? Think I won't freeze you into an ice sculpture right now? In most boisterous, excited moments like this, Lucy would be in full force as the guild's straight woman, cutting through the noise. But today she stayed silent. Even after they left the lake ruins and returned to the shore, she kept her head bowed. Seeing her injured friends around her and Chess unable to stand, self-blame gnawed at her. Even though Fairy Tale and Phantom Lord had already clashed, the root of the conflict, the whole thing, traced back to her being the daughter of the Heartfilia Consortium. She couldn't shake the responsibility. The guild's really taken a bad hit. We should start thinking about rebuilding, Makarov said, hands clasped behind his back, staring at the wrecked headquarters with heavy heart. Guildmaster, I'm sorry, Lucy started, walking into the center of the crowd, shoulders heavy with the duty she felt she owed. It's fine, Lucy. We can rebuild the guild anytime, Mira said with a comforting smile. Right, Luce? No one was seriously hurt. That's what matters. This counts as a big win for us. Levy, who was close to Lucy, came over with Jet and Troy in some translations, smiling behind her. Natsu, Gray, Urza, and the others wore relaxed expressions, dismissive of the damage. For them, beating Phantom Lord and not losing Lucy was more than enough. But Mira and Livy's kind words didn't comfort Lucy. They made her guilt press down harder. She covered her face and tried to stifle her sobs, desperate not to let anyone see her tear-streaked, broken state. Lucy. Makarov's voice was low and steady. Whether it's joy or pain, companions can't share everything, but they can share a lot. That's what a guild is. One person's happiness is the guild's happiness. One person's anger is the guild's anger. One person's tears are the guild's tears. There's no need to blame yourself for this. You understand each of us deeply, don't you? Makarov turned slowly to Lucy, who was sobbing harder, and said, Lift your head. You are part of Fairy Tale. That finally broke Lucy. She lowered her hands and let herself collapse, crying loudly and exposing her most vulnerable side to her friends. Mira and Levy moved to comfort her. Around them, the others relaxed visibly, relieved. In a quiet corner among the ruins, Chess sat apart, having left Lucy's comforting embrace. He understood the moment. This was important for Lucy to truly become part of Fairy Tale, and he didn't want to interfere. His gaze shifted from the sobbing girl inward. In the ethereal card space, a new card drifted into being, slowly revolving. It was a drop from Saint Jose of the 10 Wizard Saints, a magic card whose face depicted two monsters converging into one beneath a blue-purple vortex. Its name was Fusion. Among card players, there was a saying, Fusion is the most noble summoning method. Putting aside monster cards that gain power through fusion, what intrigued Chess most was what fusion would do to people. Apart from the magic cards that bear specific names, Saint Light Protective Seal Sword, Book of Secret Arts, most can't directly be used on mages. But a magic card like this might be different. Chess's eyes gleamed with a mix of anticipation and mischief as he looked toward Natsu and Gray, who were bickering about who'd taken down the stronger foe. If he fused those two together, it would be absolutely entertaining. A flame and ice dragon, perhaps. Natsu and Gray felt something and turned in unison, catching Chess's sly expression. Hey, why do I suddenly feel like ants are crawling all over me? Gray muttered, clutching his chest. I feel it too, this ice block idiot. This is bad. Chess is not up to anything good. Natsu nodded, no longer bothering to tease Gray, and eyed Chess warily. Yo, Chess grinned and waved. This wasn't the right time for experiments, and his magic hadn't fully recovered, so he would have to wait. Natsu and Gray hugged each other tight. That's even scarier, they both shouted. Thump, 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 heavy, synchronized footsteps echoed from down the street. The council's envoys arrived, flanked by uniformed forces, moving in to surround the Fairy Tale members and the bound Jose and Phantom Lord operatives. Everyone, don't move, the frog-faced council envoy barked, looking them over with an unreadable expression. When he glanced at Chess sitting still in the corner, he visibly relaxed and spoke coldly. Fairy Tale, Phantom Lord, you are suspected of serious violations of the Interguild warbans. You are hereby placed under mandatory investigation. They always knew how to pick their moments, those council dogs. Chess glanced at the troop with bored contempt. From the destruction of Fairy Tale's headquarters to Gajeel's counterattack, from Mira, Urza and the others evacuating Magnolia's residence to Giamon stirring trouble, and Phantom Lord bringing a massive magical giant across towns to assault the lake, there had been at least a dozen hours for the council to react. Yet, they only showed up after the fighting finished. The implication was worth thinking about. Please let me explain, Makarov said, stepping forward. This whole incident was provoked by Phantom Lord and Sabretooth. We were defending ourselves. Thanks to Chess's interventions, Fairy Tale's actions looked nothing like the chaotic version the outside world might recall. The guild had been destroyed. They had endured it. Giamon's trouble was handled. Phantom Lord clearly initiated the main assault. Even the question of Gajeel being hung on the tower, no, Gajeel attacked first. At worst, it could be framed as a skirmish between mages. From an outsider's perspective, Phantom Lord bore the blame. Fairy Tale could legitimately claim to have been acting in self-defense, and could even demand compensation from Phantom Lord for medical care, lost wages, emotional distress, and so on. Chapter 98. Missed again. Let's have a showdown. 2 in 1. The council's here. Run. Unlike Chess and the others, who kept their heads, Natsu, whose brain only worked when there was a fight, turned tail and bolted, instinct taking over. In his simple mind, the council could only mean trouble. He'd barely taken 2 steps when a magic circle etched with strange runes flared beneath his feet and pinned him to the spot. The move came from Lahar, captain of the enforcement unit. Long sword, glasses, and an air of refinement. He'd used a rule-based barrier technique similar to what Freed of the Thunder God tribe used. This idiot, Gray muttered, rubbing his forehead. Natsu, relax. We're the victims here, Mira said with a small smile. We can't help but make him the focus. Urza didn't look amused at all. Exactly. Mira's right. Mr. Envoy, the council must see justice for us. Makarov immediately started into a dramatic performance, sniffling and tearing up. How hateful. They trampled our guild, the thing that keeps us alive. His over-the-top misery made the Fairy Tale members struggle to keep from laughing. They turned their faces away to hide it. The council envoy and Lahar shot each other a frown, looked at the ruined Phantom Lord headquarters on the lake, and then to Jose and the others, bruised, battered. For a bewildering instant, it was hard to tell who the real victim was. We will investigate thoroughly. For now, all of you must go to the temporary outpost outside the city and submit to questioning, Lahar said without expression. The council already had a rough picture of what had happened and knew Fairy Tale had the right of it, but there were processes to follow. The council couldn't just announce Fairy Tale innocent on the spot. That would dent their own authority. At least on paper, they had to rein in Fairy Tale's arrogance. This was an assignment the council chairman had given the enforcement unit personally. Questioning? Isn't it obvious? Exactly. We only fought back. Kana and Marcus protested. Lockie, however, mused, I'm very good at being questioned. I've got tons of wooden torture tools at home that give a real sense of separation from the soul. Please get a grip. Hey, we're the ones being questioned. Macau complained, baffled. What's with separation from the soul? Wooden torture tools. According to the girls in the guild, Lockie's dorm apparently housed a collection of odd wooden implements. Virgo suddenly emerged from the ground, blank-faced, eyeing the enforcement unit's weapons with interest. You really won't pass up any advantage. Lucy, used to Virgo's tendencies, covered her face with one hand. After what had happened, she felt a lot calmer, but the whole situation still left the council envoy bewildered. Even the enforcement unit, usually strict and professional, hesitated, caught between law and the strange realities before them. Quiet, everyone. Cooperate with the council, Makarov said, finally stepping forward to restore order. Although unhappy about it, the Fairy Tale members obeyed their guildmaster and let the enforcement unit slip sealing cuffs on them. Chess, somewhat recovered, walked up to the council envoy with a grin. Yo, we meet again, Mr. Envoy. The envoy flinched, stepping back behind Lahar. He could keep an air of calm or arrogance in front of Makarov, and the rest, but Chess made him truly uneasy. He still remembered the unreasonable punch Chess had landed when summoning Urza last time. Even Councilman Chikalayan had seemed powerless. Adding to his disquiet, Ultier, who normally ignored guild politics, had insisted they not make things difficult for Fairy Tail and Chess when they left for Magnolia. "Don't worry, I'm a law-abiding citizen of Magnolia," Chess said cheerfully, holding his hands up. With his magical reserves drained, the cuffs were mostly symbolic. Eventually, everyone involved in the guild war, along with the unconscious Geoman and the captured Phantom Lord members, was escorted to the temporary outpost on the southern outskirts of Magnolia. It sat on a cliff in the mountains. The setting sun cast an afterglow over the trees as Mistogen sat on a protruding rock, watching the enforcement unit lead the teams away. The 5 staves strapped behind him glowed faintly, evidence they'd been used recently. "Maybe I did something unnecessary," he murmured, unbuttoning his black robe. A rush of colorful Phantom Lord flags fluttered out, scattering and hanging from surrounding trees and bushes. Upon learning Phantom Lord planned to attack Fairy Tail, Mistogen had gone alone to cut off all their branches to sever their support and complicate their operations. He had done it himself. The temporary station was large, dozens of tents stamped with the Council's emblem. Fairy Tail and Phantom Lord were kept in separate areas. Sabretooth, with only about 10 members present, had been clustered with Phantom Lord. The Council medical team set to work immediately, hauling the seriously wounded onto stretchers. The Council had clearly planned for emergencies, another sign of their careful calculation. Why hadn't they intervened earlier? One reason: Fairy Tail and Phantom Lord were both famous, obstinate guilds. The Council needed a legitimate pretext to publicly rein them in and reassert authority. Another reason: the feud between the two guilds had been going on for so long and involved so many factions inside the Council, some favoring Fairy Tail, some Phantom Lord, some neutral, that the simplest, cruelest solution was to let them clash and call it settled. Night fell and cold moonlight lit the station. Chess and Natsu left the medical tent after being treated and returned to the Fairy Tail area under guard, the only 2 from their guild who had needed care. Chess's condition was depleted magic power, similar to Makarov after Arya's ambush in the original tale, but lighter and treatable with a magic drip. Natsu, fresh from a savage fight with Gajeel, had mostly blunt force injuries. After a quick treatment and a few good flames, he seemed greedy for more action. Phantom Lord, by contrast, had many seriously wounded still in the medical tents. "Ha ha ha, Chess, did you see? Some of those Phantom Lord guys were so weak they needed a lot of water." Natsu laughed, remembering a comic scene. "Having salted fish jammed in your mouth for a while, that would make anyone thirsty," Chess replied with a smile. The unlucky Phantom Lord mages would probably never want to see a blue cat or a salted fish again. "That's my Happy you're talking about. Don't underestimate him." Natsu puffed out his chest, proud. He and Happy had grown up together. "Aye." Happy flew in from Fairy Tail's camp and landed nearby. Seeing Chess and Natsu safe, the other guild members breathed easier. "Members of Fairy Tail, you're still under custody. Please stay in your tents unless you have business," an enforcement unit guard reminded them. Chess and Natsu were pointed toward their assigned tent. To manage them, the Council grouped the Fairy Tail members into 5s for questioning the next day. Happy was treated as a pet, free to move inside the outpost, but not to leave. Chess noted his tent's curtain was drawn shut while the others peeked out, and before he could ask what kind of roommates they'd been assigned, impatient Natsu yanked the curtain aside and burst in. "Ah!" came a surprised shout from inside. Only a few people in the guild could elicit that reaction from Natsu. Chess followed him in. The temporary tent was simple: 5 portable beds lined along a wooden table, a hanging magic lamp, and a water cooler with tea bags in the corner. Old perverts Macau and Wakaba were huddled face-to-face by the water cooler, ogling the latest photo album of beautiful girls they'd begged from Makarov. They were so engrossed they barely registered the arrivals. Chess ignored them. At the far side of the tent, a quiet figure sat motionless. Chess blinked. "Mistogen. I participated in the fight against Phantom Lord, so I must answer the Council. Mistogan said in a calm, low voice. He had come forward voluntarily. His solo assault on Phantom Lord's branches was too large a thing to hide, and waiting for the council to discover it would only put Fairy Tale in a worse position. He looked at Chess with one eye visible, and faintly surprised, added, "I didn't expect to be assigned to the same tent as you." Mistogan had planned to slip away after questioning by putting his roommates to sleep with his magic. He hadn't expected to get Chess as a roommate. Chess was one of the few people in the guild who could resist his sleep magic. "Ah, he spoke! Mistogan actually spoke!" Natsu pointed, eyes wide with shock. Happy mirrored his expression. Even Macau and Wakaba stopped mid-snick, lifted their heads like they'd seen a new world. Few people ever heard Mistogan's voice, and fewer still had the chance to speak with him up close. Mistogan's hand moved toward the staff behind him. When they arrived at the outpost, the enforcement unit had removed the ceiling cuffs, mostly a formality with Makarov present. Fairy Tale wouldn't make a run for it. "Hey, wait!" Natsu shouted, flames igniting around his fist. "Mistogan, let's have a showdown!" Natsu's challenge only hardened Mistogan's resolve to use his sleep spell. Chess couldn't stand it and punched Natsu in the head, leaving a bump. "Idiot! Look at where we are. We're still council property," he scolded. Chess had seen evidence that Mistogan cared for Fairy Tale, even if he acted alone. With the possibility Mistogan would return to Edelus soon, Chess wanted him to stay, to make memories with his friends, rather than slip away in secrecy. Sitting down at the tea table, Chess leaned forward a little. "By the way, you said you took part in the fight against Phantom Lord. How come we didn't see you at all?" Mistogan looked at him, then at Natsu, who was sulking, and finally let his hand fall away from the staff. He spoke simply, as if recounting something mundane. "I took down all of Phantom Lord's branches. Chapter 99, Anti-Man Special Attack Magic." "What?" Natsu's incredulous shout rang through the whole camp, shaking the tent as if it too were offended by the noise. "Hey, hey! Keep it down in there! Do you want to be locked up by yourselves?" A guard's reprimand came from outside. At that, Natsu finally quieted. Mistogan's eyes, however, flickered at the phrase "locked up alone." He considered it for a moment, and then dismissed the thought. "You'd have to make a real fuss to be confined like that." "To be honest, we were surprised when we first heard it too," Macau said, looking a little moved. Mistogan hadn't told them anything during the whole operation. They only learned the news at the guildmaster's briefing. Aside from Urza and Mira, most of the others had reacted much like Natsu. It wasn't that they doubted Mistogan could wipe out Phantom Lord's branches. His position in the guild was simply too mysterious. Many longtime members were feeling Mistogan's strength directly for the first time. But looking back on it calmly, it makes sense, Wakaba said, pipe between his teeth and a matter-of-fact smile on his face. "Aye! After all, it's Mistogan," Happy added. Natsu's blood boiled at that. His urge to challenge Mistogan flared, but Chess was right. Fighting here would create serious trouble. When it came to guild rules, Natsu could be surprisingly obedient. He changed tactics. "Speaking of which, Mistogan, you hungry? I'll treat you to some fire." With nowhere to direct his challenge, Natsu's eyes darted about and a filament of high-quality flame danced across his palm. "Hey, are you stupid? Mistogan isn't a dragon slayer," Macau snapped. "You idiot. If he eats, he has to take off his mask, right?" Natsu blurted. He really was angling to see Mistogan's face. "Oh, so that's the plan," Macau laughed. "I didn't expect that move. You're full of surprises, Natsu." Wakaba gave a thumbs up. "Hey, Mistogan, want some fish? There's no pervy seasoning on it." Happy, all action, produced a prized fish from Karuna Island and trotted over to offer it, eyes sparkling with anticipation. That was putting everything on the line. Mistogan. Even Chess, who had a cup of tea in hand, blinked. The idea was clear and bold, but the three of them were openly plotting that close to Mistogan, right in front of him. That seemed like a risky gamble. Seeing no reaction from Mistogan, Happy and Natsu drooped. "Heh heh. That man won't fall for such a cheap trick." "Natsu, Happy, you're too young. At critical moments, learn from the adults," Macau and Wakaba said to each other, their expressions full of meaning. They strode forward with smug confidence. "Be ready, Mistogan. Even if you know our objective, this is an attack you cannot resist. We'll uncover the true face of Fairy Tale's most mysterious man." The confidence oozing from them, made Mistogan frown. He felt a faint pressure. He hadn't interrupted earlier because he wanted to spare Chess the embarrassment of being the one to act. If Chess got involved, things would get messy. "Take this, Mistogan." Macau and Wakaba shouted in unison and unveiled the secret weapon they'd hidden behind their backs. Anti-Man Special Attack Magic, the hottest page from a Gravure Idol photo book. X2. The tense, heated atmosphere collapsed into a cold silence. Outside, it sounded as if a murder of crows had flown by. When the glossy pine-up image came into view, Mistogan's mouth twitched twice. He sat motionless, a little amused and mildly regretful that he'd been prepared. "Huh? That's the irresistible attack." Natsu voiced the thought on everyone's mind. "What's so great about it? It's worse than Happy's fish." He had been looking forward to something grand. Instead, this was a dud, less exciting than watching Lucy. The two instigators were stunned. They couldn't accept that Mistogan remained unmoved. This was supposed to be a guaranteed weakness. Even the guild master, one of the 10 saints, had supposedly been shaken by it once. "Hey, Mistogan, are you blind? Look closely. This leg, this waist, that." Macau had barely raised a hand to indicate the picture when both he and Wakaba suddenly grew inexplicably heavy-eyed. Thump. Before he could finish, the two perverts collapsed to the ground and fell into a deep sleep. A mist drifted through the tent, extinguishing Wakaba's still-burning pipe. "Aha! Serves you right, Mistogan's angry." Natsu guffawed at their misfortune. Then he, too, slumped over. Happy was not spared. He fell midair, landing squarely on Natsu's head with his eyes closed. Mistogan removed his hand from his staff, glanced at Chess, and exhaled softly. "Sorry, I'm not used to this noisy environment." "It's fine. Even if you didn't act, I was already preparing to use sleep magic," Chess replied, looking at the three bodies and the cat asleep on the floor. For taciturn Mistogan, keeping his silence until now had been an act of restraint. "You can use sleep magic too?" Mistogan asked, surprised. He hadn't realized Chess's card magic included such effects. "Physical sleep is still sleep," Chess said, smiling and making a casual fist the size of a sandbag. He handed his brewed black tea to Mistogan. "Here, I tasted it. It's pretty good. Must be the council's special supply." "I see. I was ignorant," Mistogan replied, taking the cup with a touch of awkwardness. He moved cautiously, as if guarding against something. If everyone were as brazenly curious as Natsu, things could get complicated. "You were amazing back there. I heard Phantom Lord had dozens of branches, right?" "They must have overreached. Compared to you, who beat Jose of the 10 Saints, I'm still far behind," Chess said modestly, but it was true. Mistogan's victory hadn't been purely solo effort. "It wasn't just my strength. The old man and the guild backed me up." "You've improved your magic power since we last met," Chess added, studying Mistogan with narrowed eyes. Mistogan smiled faintly. "A magician must have a firm will and constantly battle strong enemies for breakthroughs. The guildmaster said that." "Right. Mistogan, when sleeping now. Good night." Mistogan cut him off, set the teacup down, and rolled onto the bed. He pulled the blanket up over his head and, almost casually, traced a triple magic circle, mirror water, around himself. The motions were smooth and efficient, leaving Chess no chance to continue. "You guys." Chess shook his head, but didn't press it. He gathered Natsu and the others, dropping them onto their respective beds like a farmer tucking in chicks, turned off the light, and climbed in himself. Chapter 100, Godslayer Magic of the Sky. Dragon Chess didn't fall asleep right away. Instead, he entered the deck space. Mistogan's words had made him realize something important only after the fact. Besides resting after the fight with Jose and dealing with the council's mandatory surveillance, he had focused most of his attention on developing and using magic card fusion, and in doing so, he had overlooked a less obvious benefit. With the addition of new cards, his magic power had increased. The deck space was an independent world, similar to the Star Spirit world, but clearly divided into many scattered regions by golden boundary lines. When card monsters weren't summoned, they remained in their own areas, and each area had its own character. The Citadel Winged Dragon's domain was a majestic ancient city. The summoning of the demon sat in a dark, infernal realm. The Night Trio's area was a magnificent palace. The place Lucy had slept on Karuna Island last time was really just a bedroom in the pink castle where the black magician girl lived. Chess's condensed consciousness hovered in the air. overlooking the vast deck space. When he manifested his aura, a stream of pink light shot from the pink castle at once. "Yay! Master, are you here to see me?" the Black Magician girl called, blinking her big eyes. Although Chess's magic power had almost recovered, the Black Magician girl, who had been sent to the graveyard as a sacrifice during the battle with Joses, still required time before she could be normally summoned, so she could not appear in the present world. Even when the time came, Chess didn't plan to let the reckless girl out. The council's interrogation was only beginning. "No," Chess said sharply. Thump. The Black Magician girl, striking a cute pose, toppled headfirst, then slowly floated back up with her pink cheeks puffed out in a sulk. Chess saw through the act at a glance, but reached up and ruffled the head partly hidden beneath her hat. She chuckled and then, belatedly, widened her eyes. "Something serious?" "Yes. I want to see if I can open that area." Chess pointed to a mysterious region high above the deck space, where light and darkness tangled, lightning cracked, and thunder roared, a place that radiated a powerful, chaotic aura. The Black Magician girl's comfortable smile vanished instantly. Her pupils narrowed and her breath quickened. There was a simple reason. That was the domain where the god resided. "So that's it. It'll be difficult, but your magic power is much higher now than when you first returned to Fior. It's worth a try," the Black Magician girl said. A black magic robe fluttered, and the Black Magician appeared at Chess's side. He stood with his arms folded, solemnly watching the oppressive, chaotic space. Chess, although master of the deck, couldn't freely traverse all the card areas. Some were restricted by power. For example, the area of the 8-star Chaos Black Magician had been completely sealed before Chess left for his 10-year mission to the Kiltina continent. It wasn't a punishment so much as a self-protection mechanism. Handing a 3-year-old a large sword they couldn't wield would only hurt them. Only by opening the chaotic domain and establishing contact with the Sky Dragon would Chess be truly qualified to summon a god. "Let's give it a try," he said. After exchanging glances with the Black Magician and the Black Magician girl, Chess took a deep breath and closed his eyes. When he opened them moments later, his entire aura had changed. His magic power surged at an incredible rate. With a roar, a pillar of dark golden magic shot skyward, overwhelming everything as it slammed into the chaotic domain. Fierce winds howled, electric arcs leapt outward, and low thunder rolled across the deck space. Ripples spread across the surface of the chaotic region, and under the relentless onslaught of the dark golden torrent, a void cracked from top to bottom with a resounding split. An ancient sacred presence seeped from the fissure. Within, the apocalypse of lightning and thunder could be faintly seen. Clatter. A razor-sharp claw extended from the crack, followed by 2 rows of fangs set with blue gems and a pair of fierce golden eyes. Without a word, simply by being the deck's absolute owner, Chess understood the Sky Dragon's intentions and thought. When he withdrew his magic power connection, the crack in the chaotic space slowly sealed and the Sky Dragon's overwhelming aura faded. The deck space quieted again. "How was it? How was it?" the Black Magician girl asked, leaning forward with eager eyes, but the moment the Sky Dragon had appeared, she darted to hide behind Chess. The Black Magician's gaze was more restrained, but a strange flicker in his deep eyes showed his curiosity. Chess turned and was surprised by the sight beside him. Not just the Black Magician and his apprentice, but other card monsters, Citadel Wing Dragon, Curse Dragon, Kuriboh, had gathered, even the usually aloof Chaos Black Magician. Those that couldn't fly stood perched on the shoulders of a rock giant soldier to get a better view. It made sense. After all, that had been a true god. Chess waved and sighed. As expected, it still won't work. The Black Magician girl looked crushed. If it's just summoning, that shouldn't be a big problem. Chess scratched his head and gave an awkward smile. It's not the summoning itself. With my current magic power, I'd be drained instantly. Then it's a waste of effort. The Black Magician girl pouted. That's not necessarily true, the Black Magician said in a low voice. He'd noticed the faint smile on Chess's lips and had already guessed. The Chaos Black Magician gave a disinterested nod. He'd seen it too. No, what exactly is going on? The girl demanded, pulling at her hair in frustration. She hated her master's habit of only saying half of what he meant. Chess couldn't hold back any longer. Although the duration of a direct summoning of the Sky Dragon would be extremely short, as long as I can make contact with the chaotic domain, a connection is established between me and the Sky Dragon. Then, the Black Magician Girl began, eyes shining as she anticipated the explanation one of the others had hinted at. I can use part of the Sky Dragon's power, Chess finished. Just like I use your abilities. According to Natsu and the others, that is, Godslayer magic of the Sky Dragon.